Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I just expect everyone in the chat to be on their best behavior from now on.
Yes, they usually are here, at least for the past few months.
I know, I have a tendency to attract the rabble, it seems.
Don't go screaming about what they've done in the latest X-Men comic.
Okay? Well, there's that. But,
no, there is.
But I will. See, I just feel like I'm the one who's supposed to be doing the ranting, whether it's your channel or mine. I feel I'm the ranter. That's what a lot of people come here for.
I want to make a point too. I mean, I'm obviously on here anonymously, and I think that I think sometimes not everybody online.
To the point that I call you Aged Boomer in the background, so as not to
yes.
accidentally, leak your secret identity in public.
But I try.
Can you imagine Lois Lane calling Clark Superman like at home?
No, there was a funny line. It was one of the few good lines in Amazing Spider-Man 2 where like I think it was Gwen Stacy, like he like Spider-Man Webster, don't follow me, Webster, to the thing so she can't move. And she goes, Peter, and then she covers her mouth by accident, she yells out Peter.
Yep, that's exactly it. I didn't actually see that one. I didn't see the one with Gwen Stacy, but there you go.
Nothing wrong with the actors in them. In fact, I now, in retrospect, I feel really bad. I think Andrew Garfield really got robbed. He was just in bad material. That's what
I've heard. I'm almost inclined to want to go back and see it for that. But yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm afraid that I would do.
They had cast Mary Jane too for, I guess, a part 3, but they cut her scenes out of part 2 and they didn't use her. It was the one who was in those Divergent movies. What's her name? The lead actress. But yeah, here we are. No, anyway, what I was trying to make a point about, though.
Yeah, secret identity, Aged Boomer.
I try to not use that to my advantage and I still try to have some kind of decorum, online, even though you
other than your name and face, you represent yourself as who you are.
Fairly much, yeah. Maybe expressing some opinions I wouldn't share public, but I'm not.
Right.
I tried. I mean, I remember where I was.
You can actually be more authentic because you are using a pseudonym. Yeah.
But I try to be. You always have to be careful online about what you say because you don't want it to be. You're not going to want to.
The internet is forever. Yeah.
Yes. So you're not going to want to say something just because you think you can. Think about how you would have a conversation with someone in real life. That's how I look at the internet.
Aviva Fry has a great way of putting it. He says, "Don't ever say anything in writing or in public that you wouldn't say in front of the judge, because you never know, that stuff might get back to the judge someday."
Let's say hi to some people.
Absolutely.
Horizon Talker, hello the chat, welcome. Always good to see you. Horizon Talker has a channel. You should check it out. He's got a writing blog.
Yeah. He's got some great tips for anyone that's thinking about writing and people being critical of other people's writings too. Definitely check it out.
Speaking of, that's true. Speaking of channels, Big Al Presents is here. Welcome. He did a recent coverage of Willow.
Yes, he did, and I was complimenting him on. Well, I mean, I have nothing to base it on because I didn't see any of it, but I enjoyed his review enough to know that I probably will not be seeing this Willow show.
I'm sure there's lots of lawyers out there talking OGL this week, but if you haven't seen anything yet, Runkle's Roll of Law channel.
I have that saved on my to watch list. I watched so many videos last week, but we're not going to get as far into the weeds on the legal stuff as you might think I would. I'm going to take a different approach to it. Think you'll enjoy it. Stay with us.
Yeah. So Andrew Garfield's a phenomenal actor. He is. He is really good in that Hacksaw Ridge, right? That was excellent.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean that, he's not even Spider-Man to me now.
He was actually a 4-foot version of the Dread
Pirate Roberts.
I'm actually 5'11", if you must know. Do you know what disturbs me? I used to be like 6 foot or 6'1". And then I guess when I got measured without shoes on, at like a physical couple years ago, I was 5'11".
Sure.
And I went to the nurse practitioner, seen her for my physical, and she goes, "Oh, welcome to being in your 40s." Like you shrink. What the heck? No.
Ouch! Ouch!
How many men can say they're 6 foot or more? Come on, that's like
I had someone measuring me one time for a
5'11".
costume or a garment or something like that, and with before we got to the measurement, she said to me, "What are you, about 6 feet tall?" I said, "Nope, 5'12".
Funny,
I'm
funny
not
man.
actually that tall. I think I'm a 5'11". 5'11".
You're probably the
5'11".
same. Yeah,
I have
5'11".
to. I look across around the
That's
monitor.
still pretty
and that
tall.
confirms
I
for me.
mean, it's a joke that the women on the dating pro when they're on the dating sites, I don't know, 6 feet or higher. It's like you're not going to go for 5'11". Okay,
I know that 1 inch. You know,
you're probably
that doesn't-
5'4", right? Yeah,
I
it's
know
just-
1 inch can be very, very important, but in tallness, I don't think it matters.
It's ridiculous. That's
But
not
I'm
even.
ching.
That's higher than average height. Anyway, Catman, Dee Dee Myers, welcome. Hi, everybody. Zootopia, thank you. Have you guys seen the Velma series? Oh, wow. I have heard, I've been tempted to cover it on this channel, but I don't even want to. That Velma series. I would like someone to go up to David Zaslav, and to be fair, I'm sure this thing was greenlit before he took over.
Yeah.
But Scooby-Doo is actually a fairly popular name brand.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're letting people come in and burn your brand. Stop it.
Well, that's because
And it's a
again,
kid-
these
yeah.
are these cultural Marxists that are literally taking a torch to all institutions. That's just what they do.
And it's not funny. In fact, one guy was watching online. I think his name was a Penguin. He was going on thinking that the jokes were fed through a computer algorithm, and that they no one actually came up with the jokes. It's like the.
Actually, I think an AI would come up with better jokes because at least they draw on real humor.
Yeah, but the point is that
Maybe
Scooby-Doo
Boomer is a little short to be a stormtrooper.
funny. But the point is that Scooby-Doo, it's also a family-friendly property, and you're having it's sounding like that Santa Claus series they made with Seth Rogen a couple years back that we were ranting about. I noticed I heard nothing about that show after its first season. I don't know if it got canned or if they're just taking longer to get season two made up. I don't know.
And real quick, I think there's a couple names we missed. We missed Soundtracks with Birdman.
Oh,
How you
welcome.
doing, my friend.
Yeah,
Mananui. How you doing?
Yeah,
and
we probably
Catman, a.k.a. Dee Dee Meyer. Dee Dee Meyer, so glad to see you. You are a busy guy. I know you get around a lot, but I miss you when you're not here. I really do.
Yeah, but welcome, Birdman. And I know he's had a lot going on. We are going to get back to streaming probably.
Matanui, I will
February.
say this about the Velma series, which, again, I have not seen, so I can't speak personally, just from what I've heard about it. The reason that it's good that the Velma series exists is because it makes every other iteration of Scooby-Doo and the mystery team look better by comparison. You know, I was listening to a commentary that Midnight's Edge was doing about those movies with Freddie Prinze and the Vampire Slayer chick and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's the name of the girl that played Velma in that?
Cardellini's her last name. Italian. Yeah, I just.
Yeah, she
Linda
played,
Cardellini, is that it?
Linda
Yeah,
Cardellini,
yeah.
right. She played Hawkeye's wife in the
in the Avengers movies. Yeah.
And that she's my Velma. There's just no way around. She's Velma.
She's a very underrated comedic actress. She got her start on Freaks and Geeks. That was actually back when I really liked Judd Apatow. Like
There
when he
you
first
go.
started out, that was a quality series.
I think it was. I can't remember if it was Tom or one of the other blokes over there on Midnight's Edge was saying didn't care for Freddie Prinze and Buffy there. Because they were playing parodies of the characters, where everybody else was playing it straight, especially that kid
Matthew
that
Lillard.
played. Yeah, Willard. Yeah,
Matthew
see,
Lillard.
Now,
Yeah.
Now I tend to think of him from Twin Peaks, but he was.
He needs to do more acting. I don't know why I'm not seeing him
He
in
got
more
a big
stuff.
following between
Yeah.
playing Shaggy and Twin Peaks. He has a huge following now, and they
He was in Scream, the first one.
That's right. He was. He
Yeah.
was one of the killers. One of the
Yeah.
killers. I'm sorry.
Spoiler!
If you haven't seen Scream, 40 years out now? Come on. But
There was a rumor they might bring him back for one of the sequels because
how?
did he necessarily die? He got a TV dumped on him, so maybe he died, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he's been in jail.
That would be a good twist. But the only way you bring him back is if you're going to kill him again or something. That's the only
Probably.
thing. But anyway, the point being that okay, so whoever it was that said they didn't like it because of Freddie Prinze and Buffy. Damn it! Why can't I remember Buffy's name?
Michelle.
Why does
Sarah Michelle Gellar?
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Michelle Gellar, yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar, right.
Who was on a soap opera. She got her work in soaps originally.
Gosh, see,
All My Children?
that's one of the things we'll be talking. And thank you for the setup for Friday, where on Last Call we'll be talking about the soap operas, the daytime dramas of the late '80s, early '90s, with regular Peanut Gallery member and occasional guest Sir Torrin Clegane. One of the things we're going to talk about is how many people got their starts in soap operas that are big stars now today. And a lot of people go, oh, I didn't know they used to be in soaps. And I'll be honest with you, there are some people in films that started out in soaps that I watched and did not make the connection they were the same people because so much time had passed. I joke around with Big Al because he's a big fan of Kelly Ripa. And I said, yeah, I remember when she first got into TV and she played Tinkerbell. And he was like, Tinkerbell? She was in Peter Pan. I said, no, not that Tinkerbell. She played Haley Vaughn, and her uncle's nickname for her was Tinkerbell. But if you see her then and you see her now, two almost completely different people between the hairstyle and age. I mean, she's still beautiful, but she was a kid back then. It's just you don't even recognize. But
yeah. Cool.
John Wesley Shipp got his start on Guiding Light. Thank you for bringing that up. Hopefully you will remind us of that on Friday, because those are the kinds of things that I never watched The Guiding Light. I'm going to be focused mostly on the ABC soaps, All My Children, One Life to Live, and General Hospital.
Anyway, though, you were saying about Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. So
Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze were just doing parodies of the character.
Yeah, they were. But they were passable, I feel, for what they were. And if you didn't like them, well, compare them to their portrayal in Velma. They look a lot better, don't they? That's all I'm saying.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch Velma. Obviously, I think it's a holdover from prior to Zaslav. But he needs to start taking a look at the whole of Warner Brothers. And granted, he did cancel a lot of other cartoon series, which I don't know if they were going to be good or bad, but maybe make sure this one doesn't get renewed.
I can only
go into DC and hatchet that place up.
I cannot see this thing getting a season 2. I mean, that would just be ridiculous. But as Tom pointed out, he said it's his opinion. This is Scooby-Doo in name only. First off, there is no dog in this thing.
Right.
And secondly, they've messed with all the characters to the point of being almost unrecognizable.
Unless the dog ends up being the murderer at the end of this.
Well, right.
Exactly. That's what they would probably do.
But honestly, it just seems like this is a wrapping that they put on a self-insert character for Mindy What's-Her-Fuck. Whatever
from The Office.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you how you can do something like this and be successful. Venture Brothers.
Yeah.
Venture Brothers is in many ways, it parodies a lot of stuff from 60s pop culture.
Even Archer.
Even Archer. That's a parody.
Yeah.
It's not being the actual thing. Like Venture Brothers is doing a few nods to Johnny Quest. It's making fun of Johnny Quest, but it's not Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest is its own thing. Do you understand?
Right.
It's
well, so and it's like, and this thing has all. Honestly, we didn't have Velma on the docket to talk about tonight, but I guess we are. A lot of people on social media, well, everybody knows that Velma's gay. And I'm like, the only people that could possibly say that and mean it had never actually watched Scooby-Doo.
No.
I mean, she was clearly boy crazy. She was reserved, she was quiet, she was shy, but she was clearly into guys. She was never into girls. There wasn't even a tongue-in-cheek, there wasn't even a coding kind of thing that you could point to.
There was a funny little clip on Cartoon Network years back where Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory was in love with Velma, but she was dating Johnny Bravo.
Yeah, I saw that going around at same company, so I guess it's canon. But I'll tell you this, something I found out this week as all this stuff was going around on the social medias. Apparently, the only place you're going to find Thelma being into girls is on the Hub and the adult parodies. So if that's where you insist that that Velma is gay, then we know what you're actually watching, and it's not Scooby-Doo.
Well, knowing HBO, they'll hire some of those. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. Not on the stream.
You know, if they did, they would at least be. They would look more the part.
I was with someone watching RoboCop for the first time, and they said, "Hey, that's the dad from that '90s show." But I am old enough to hear people say, "Hey, the guy from RoboCop is in that '90s show." Yeah, the guy from that '70s show. Red from that '70s show. He was in RoboCop.
Oh my gosh, he was. You're right.
Honecker.
Holy crap! I forgot.
Terrifying.
God,
you know, there's going to inevitably be a RoboCop reference on that '90s show. Someone's going to say, "Hey, have you seen that new RoboCop movie?" I refuse. Red says,
and I haven't seen that '90s show yet because
I haven't yet either. I guess it just started. Yeah,
because I'm like, because it wasn't that '70s show. I was thinking of that short-lived '80s show, and I'm like, I have no idea who was on the '80s show. No, he meant Red Foreman. Okay.
No, this is a direct follow-up. Well, I don't know if it's any good or not, but I'm curious about it. I know we talked about it a few weeks back. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
the
good old days.
Tell me about the good old days. Or maybe am I going to be telling you about the good old days?
You're going to be telling me because I of course knew of this thing growing up and maybe even partook in some games in high school, but I was never as into it as other hobbies of mine.
And everyone in this community knows that as we go through the week and we say, you know, what channels are coming up and whatnot, you know, we always talk about soundtracks with Birdman on Wednesday, whether or not he's going to have a show. Usually, whether he's having a show or not, I won't be there because Wednesday night is my Dungeons and Dragons night.
How long have you been? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Interrupt you.
That's a good question. That's where I was going.
How long have you been playing? That's what I want to say.
I guess I started in grade school. Okay, so I guess I have to establish first that I was class of '84. That was my the year I graduated in quotes 8th grade. So that was for those of you that are deep into the woods on the history of D&D. I guess D&D started in like 1974 before I could even read. And it was created by Gary Gygax. He based it on the combat rules from, they used to have these military combat, games. They're still very popular if you've ever played like Robotech or something like that, or some Starship simulators or whatever, the combat games. Mm-hmm. It's all based on games that go back hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Men have been playing military combat games with miniatures and dice and stuff for centuries. They honestly have. And it was based on that hobby that Gary Gygax came up with this idea for a Middle Ages based combat, but he wanted to infuse the magic and the sword and sorcery and stuff. And when he first started putting it out, they were in these little like pamphlets, because he was, I think he was self-published and whatnot. And eventually he created TSR, which I believe stands for Tactical Simulation something or other. That's, the reference. But but it was a tabletop role playing game, and it was more focused on the rules and the combat than it was on anything else. But in modern day, it's become more and more. Role playing has really gotten into the role playing, ROLE, and less the ROLL, rolling of dice. But anyway, yeah. So in about 1977, there was a bit of a schism in Dungeons and Dragons, and there became two brandings of Dungeons and Dragons. One was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and the other was the basic set.
Yes.
And I honestly, this still predates me, so I'm a little foggy on some of the details about that. All I know is that I think that the basic game was a little bit more, well, basic, and the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was a little bit more rules heavy. So it was like younger kids and people that didn't want to read a tome of book, could get into Dungeons and Dragons with the basic set. But it was about 1980 when some friends at school were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and actually, wasn't it right around there that the cartoon was on TV and stuff too?
I think so. We also got a mention of it. The kids were playing it at the beginning of E.T. If you remember that
That's
movie,
right.
yeah?
That's right.
So
and
that was probably when it was starting to become very popular. It was like 80, 81. That was probably when it started hitting its zenith. Yeah.
And it was the friends that I was in school with. There were these two guys, Ted and Adrian. They were really, really intelligent, and they were taking high school classes on the weekends. These were the nerds. They were definitely the nerds. And
it's fun.
My mother really encouraged me to hang out with them. Right.
Good.
So when she found out that I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with them, it was just her immediate. So what is this all about? And I explained the books and the lore and the everything. She's like, okay, so it requires a lot of reading and tables and math and stuff. Okay, that sounds like good, intelligent nerd stuff. Keep going with that.
What is it all about? And I wanted to say it's about the devil.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that in a second.
Might be another good old days anyway.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But so I started out with I don't even know what version it was that they were playing, because as a player, you didn't need to get into all the rules. The dungeon master really, they were showing me how to play and what to roll and whatnot. Anyone who's ever started into a new D&D group, never played before, that you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So my mom's like, okay, so you're really into this? You want me to go buy the books? Well, when a mom goes and buys the books, she doesn't know, basic from advanced from whatever. So she got everything. She got me by that point, the basic set had been re-released. So she actually ended up getting me 2 basic sets, the 2 different editions. She got me the expert set, the companion set, and the companion set. They were box sets. And it was what it really was is the basic set expanded as your characters went up in level, whereas advanced kind of took you all the way through it. It wasn't until like 1989 when I started looking at advanced, when I had graduated high school, was going to college, and I met the buddy who's, now my lawyer, who I game with on Wednesday. We decided the new version was coming out. Instead of going back and getting into Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, they were putting out their new edition called Second Edition. And I said, okay, great. And so we got all the books for second edition, and it was a kind of whole different ball of wax. Wasn't compatible with anything that went before. The tables and numbering system were completely different. It had something called THACO. It was that's an acronym for the score you need to hit armor class 0, THACO. And honestly, it was a stupid system. It really was. But the difference was it cleaned up some kind of stupid rules. Like back in the earlier days, if you want to play a fighter, You want to play a magic user? You want to play a thief? Fine. If you wanted to play a dwarf, you were playing a dwarf. That was your class, not your race. I mean, it was your race, but your dwarf was a fighter because that's what a dwarf class was. And if you wanted to play an elf, you were basically playing a ranger. There wasn't an additional class to it. Well, come second edition, they separated the races and the classes. So you could be a magic user elf, or you could be an elf thief, or you could be an elf fighter. And, you know, all the classes were open to everyone. And there were benefits to certain classes that made certain classes more likely to choose, but you could do whatever you wanted. And the other thing was they like to, now we're getting into the role playing, right? We're getting into the flavor of it. So now you're not just a fighter. There are these more, and of course this is an opportunity for them to sell you more books, right? You could be under a fighter. You could be a ranger. You could be a paladin. You could be a swashbuckler. You could be, they were called kits. Okay. And they got special bonuses, special hindrances, like a swashbuckler's not going to be able to wear full plate armor. You just can't, you know? So that's a drawback. But
you can't be Errol Flynn Robin Hood with full armor.
Exactly. A lot of logical stuff there. I love that. That was a lot of fun. And they also started playing with different schools of magic. You could be a general wizard, or you could specialize. You could specialize on explosive fire magic or cold magic or whatever. Or, the good one. This one came late in the second edition. Chronomancy. You could be Doctor Who if you want to. That's what chronomancy was.
What?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Never lived up to its full potential by the time it ended in, I want to say around 2000. They went to third edition. And we're all like, I mean, now I've been married for, 8 years, 9 years, just starting a family, don't really have time for, or the money, I should say, for a bunch of more books. And Chris, my attorney's like, you know what? I'm going to buy the main books. I'll get the Dungeon Master Guide, the Player's Handbook, and the Monster Manual, and we'll see how it is. And it actually, this became the basis of the D20 rules that became really popular since then. And I'm getting to why it became so popular in just a second. So we liked it. It was a little chonky. And a few years later, they put out the 3.5 edition, which just streamlined some things. But again, it required you to buy some extra books. Mm-hmm. And then 2008, they decided they were going to scrap all that and go to a completely new edition. And we all just said, fuck it, we're done. We are not buying more books. We're done with this thing. And there was another company out there called Paizo. Paizo was a publishing company that was putting out the magazines, the monthly magazines for Dungeons and Dragons. At this point, owned by Wizards of the Coast. It was Dungeon Magazine and it was Dragon Magazine.
And Dragon Magazine, yeah.
Right. And they were creating content there for Dungeons and Dragons. They started creating something called adventure paths. You'd have called them campaigns back in the older days, but it took you from like first level on up to 20th level with a straight progression of adventure in one big, collection of book. And a lot of fun. Love those so much. So he said, you know what? They're basically supporting not quite exactly 3.5 edition, but it's basically the same rules. Let D&D go on and do what they're going to do. We'll stick with Paizo. So we bought, again, all new books, but we bought the Paizo books and we said, now we're done. Now we are well and truly done. So they've gone on to 4th edition. They've gone on to 5th edition. And in the news segment later on, we'll talk about what's coming after this 5th edition. But the reason that we bothered to buy more books, that we bought that 3.5 edition, the reason that we went on to buy the Pathfinder book was because Wizards of the Coast did something very, very clever. and again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on legalities here, but you can trademark Dungeons and Dragons. You can trademark special monsters that they have, like the Illithid, the Mind Flayer. You, if you've never heard anything about this in D&D, you might have seen Stranger Things, and they talked about the Mind Flayer. Well, that's a proprietary thing that Wizards of the Coast has a trademark on.
Because they own the Mind Flayer. They created it for their game. But they don't own Goblin, because Goblin is universal.
Exactly. Good point. Good point. They don't own vampires, but they own a particular vampire named Strahd von Zarovich.
It's a very popular character in Forgotten Realms, I believe, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And exactly. The Forgotten Realms is their proprietary campaign setting. So all the books that reference all the places there.
It sounds like they had plenty of ways to still generate revenue.
They did. They had absolutely did.
You had exclusive modules in their exclusive world and characters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But but there were two shortcomings that they had. One, as their worlds, and there was more than Forgotten Realms. There was Forgotten Realms, and there was Dragonlance, and there was all these other ones too, Dark Sun and whatnot. And that they put all these books out for. But when you're that big, you're publishing that much stuff, right? It's hard to keep up with. So you'd have people that would play through whatever modules you put out that year, already bought the campaign setting, and then they just sit and wait for you to put something else out. And that the other side of that coin is that sales were starting to drop off. People were losing interest, partly because of that. In comes the introduction of something called their open game license. Without getting too far into the details, what it basically said was, look, there's a lot of people out there that are either independent gamers, small upstart companies, or other publishers that would like to put out material that could be used with Dungeons and Dragons, but maybe they don't because legalities and this and that. But here's what we're going to do. If you want to put out anything that supports our game system, as long as people buy our main books, the 3 core rule books to learn the system, you can put out whatever you want as long as you're not using anything proprietary of ours. You can't write something with the Illithids in it. That's just ours. But you can create your own campaign world. You can create splat books, is what we call them. It's kind of like those kits that I talked about in second edition. Right. Add-ons, things that add some rules to give it a little flavor, stuff like that. And you can make money doing that, and we won't touch any of that. And basically, it's partly because you can't copyright a game system. The idea of creating a D20 rule set where you roll a die, you ascribe, the attributes with these numbers and so forth. You can't copyright that. They didn't own that. So these companies could do it anyway. But it made for a great synergy. Because what happens? You decide you like this campaign setting, and it says... I think it always was branded, whatever the company was, always branded as to be used with the world's most famous, role-playing game or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it had the list of all the legalese inside of this open game license. And that's when role-playing blew up. From like 2000 on, you got things like Critical Role. You got these people playing the game online. You got D&D showing up in Stranger Things. It becomes what they're calling these days a lifestyle brand. So now, not only are you coming to the game because you saw Critical Role on YouTube, or you saw Stranger Things, or your buddies were playing this Paizo or whatever other company, let me find out more about this Dungeons and Dragons thing. You know what? I think I'll get a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt when I'm at this convention. Let me buy some dice and some of those miniatures and, D&D stuff. It was good for the industry. But anyway, we'll get more into the downside of what's happening now later on in the show. But I gotta say, I've got bookshelves of books. A lot of it is D&D. I actually, those earlier editions, the basic and the advanced and second edition, I auctioned them all off at a local hobby shop, and then turned around and bought more miniatures and the more recent D&D books with what I made from it. But yeah, so that's Dungeons and Dragons for you.
Ever play GURPS generic universal role-playing system? I haven't. I was tempted to buy GURPS Lensman because it's based on one of my favorite book series, the Lensman Chronicles, and they actually made I guess a module for Lensman.
Yeah.
But I heard that people didn't like GURPS as much as D&D as far as the system went, though. But
well, I've asked because I've always wanted to do. There were 2 role-playing games that I played that were superhero based, and I'm sure anyone could guess which ones they were: Marvel and DC. So Marvel
was put out by TSR, right?
Marvel was put out by TSR, so it was very similar to D&D. It was a little chonky, but it was very synergistic with its comics because from the point that the role-playing game came out, you started seeing, if you go online right now and look up, the official wikis for Marvel characters, they'll give stats for their powers. How strong is Hulk? How strong is Spider-Man? And so on and so forth. That was specifically because they standardized that for the role-playing game. So that, they had an idea, and then writers were just like, well, now that we've standardized it, we got something to refer back to,
I think in an issue of Dragon Magazine, it was stated that the Hulk can theoretically become strong enough that he can break adamantium.
Actually, yeah, they've actually gone further with that to say that the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. So in theory, there is no limit to how strong the Hulk could get. But when you're doing a game system, you have to kind of put it into boxes, right? So if you're going to play the Hulk, either you limit him to this, or he becomes a non-player character, and as he gets stronger, he gets harder and harder, and it becomes a greater and greater challenge, which could also be part of the game. The other one that I played was Mayfair Games, DC Heroes. And that was a D100 based, and it was a lot of percentages, and the math was just mind-boggling. And I understand why they did it. It was their way of being able to put, Detective Chimp and Robin and Batman in the same game with Superman and Wonder Woman, right? But it never made sense to me, the resolution of actions in there, and it really flavored my feeling for superheroes games. So a lot of people had told me, GURPS is probably the best superhero game as far as rules go, but it's still not all that good. And I'm like, oh crap, okay, whatever.
They had Detective Chimp on Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Doesn't surprise me.
And I remember in my head, okay, is Detective Chimp a chimpanzee that was given greater intelligence through science experiments, or is Detective Chimp an actual detective that was turned into a chimpanzee? And this was going through my head as I'm watching the show. Never mind, though. But
you could look it up. That information is.
I don't want to know.
His origin.
Kind of it'll spoil it for me.
You kind of enjoy the not knowing.
I enjoy the nonsense that was the Brave and the Bold.
I have to believe he was inspired by Lancelot Link. He was just talking chimp that wore Sherlock Holmes cape and hat and smoked a pipe. That's the only thing I could think.
Let's see. Cringe is from Dragonlance. Oerth is from Greyhawk. Is Greyhawk more like a Conan style fantasy world?
No, Greyhawk
was supposed to be.
Greyhawk was meant to be very generic at first. I don't know what it eventually developed into, but it was your very generic. I don't even want to say Middle Ages. It was more like Renaissance, big castles, that kind of stuff. Yeah, city states, whatnot.
Champions was the non-licensed superhero role-playing game. That was the where you make your own superheroes. I got you instead of playing as Spider-Man or I assume you would make your own superheroes in the DC game too, though. Like you could be the Red Avenger or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. They gave you stats for the main characters, but absolutely you could create your own and do your own. I'd love to hear more about Champions, Big Al. I've heard of it mentioned. I don't know too much about it, but going back to D&D real quick, so we can wrap this up. So one of the things we've often talked about is the big moral panic that happened in the late 80s and early 90s, where you had a bunch of TV evangelists claiming that it was satanistic, and it led to
also
suicide.
Phil Donahue.
Phil Donahue was a dumbass too, but my mother, of course, heard this, and she's like, "So what's this all about?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure, there's demons and stuff in D&D," and she asked more about it, and I told her. She's like, "Okay." She knew that I wasn't a some crazy emo dingbat, that this was just
wearing black eyeliner or something, and
yeah, I mean, it's like, that would be like if you want to take this to the extreme, maybe you should ban Dante's Inferno from schools because it's talking about the devil. Come on, let's focus on the kid and not, it's. I don't know. It's not the tool; it's the person wielding it.
There's a line: if kids like it, there's something wrong with it. That's that's what it is. That's
well, and look, I mean, and crazy people are going to crazy regardless of what it is.
Sure.
I mean, it's Son of Sam. Said his dog was talking to him. Is it are dogs Satanists now too? No, the guy was crazy. Okay.
Oh man, he was a loon.
I listened to, Helter Skelter backwards and it told me to do something. I listened to Helter Skelter backwards and it gave me a great soup recipe.
Anyway, but yeah, that was the big thing. There was the Mazes and Monsters TV movie starring a young Tom Hanks where he's playing mazes.
I was going to say a young Robbie
friends.
Benson, but okay.
And he has a psychotic break.
Yeah.
And like he thinks he's the monk in the game, and like he's going around blessing people, and he's seeing.
Which is weird because for you to use, and it was written by Rona Jaffe, and it was actually a much better book, but it was still kind of flawed.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at that as an example of this could really happen, I think the story even still made it clear. This was a troubled individual, right, who was having a psychotic break anyway, and this was just the form that it took, But if you haven't seen Mazes and Monsters, kids, check it out. It was it Tom Hanks' first role?
Might have been. It was an early one. I know that much.
All I remember, I remember the whole movie, but the scene I remember the best was he's wandering around New York in a fugue state and someone tries to mug him and he pulls out a little pocket knife and he's defending himself with it as though it's a short sword. And he ends up stabbing the guy, so he successfully defends himself. But when he comes out of this fugue state, he doesn't remember the incident, and his hand is all bloody, and there's blood all over his knife. So he goes and he calls his friends. He doesn't know where he is. Please, I need help. And I just remember him going, I don't know where I am. There's blood on my knife. And you could almost picture Tom Hanks, and his voice doing that. And it's just, it's cringe and funny, but so sad bad. And weird at the same time.
It's so bad.
I don't even want to, personally, I don't even want to waste a Friday doing a rewatch of that. But
no,
I recommend
it's not a good movie.
You guys should check it out yourself. In fact, do a twofer. Do a twofer. Watch Mazes and Monsters and The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. And if you don't self-delete, you can take it out on me later.
Oh, I've never seen The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. I'll have to hunt that one down. Okay.
That one was, I think that was...
Is that a made-for-TV movie?
It was, and it was John... I think it was John Travolta's
of
first
course.
film. Yeah.
That'll be another discussion from the good old days. Made for TV movie of the weeks. We'll have to do that sometime. But
Gosh, those were
let's
terrible.
let's move on to our in remembrance.
Yeah, so we're going to be, well, let me drop
Brief.
links here. We're going to be very brief. In fact, I recommend that you don't go into reading this whole article. Jeff Beck, legendary rock guitarist and musician, dead at 78. I'll be honest with you, probably the best way, rather than us getting into it too deeply tonight, I'm dropping a link to last Friday's Last Call, where my guest, that 70s rock fan, I have that link there is queued up right to the timestamp where he starts sharing with everyone a little bit about the background on Jeff Beck. What a genius guitarist he was, and that is not something I say lightly, or that is literal. He was a unique player. A lot of big stars came out this week. Eric Clapton talking about how great he was this week. So
Yeah,
really
it was.
sad.
Yeah, I know. And
He just recently
yeah.
did a tour with Johnny Depp, as a matter of fact. So
Yeah, it
that
was
might be where
it's in the
you
article. Yeah,
guys most recently heard about him.
yeah, it's in the article. I go into more details. But we have a lot to cover tonight. So, but let's check out Friday's stream if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it with Troy. Had a great Scottish guest on with him on Friday.
But we'll get a little bit further with Lisa Marie Presley. I got two articles here because this one unfolded rather quickly.
Yes.
Lisa Marie suffers cardiac arrest, rushed to the hospital. Ex-husband performed CPR. This was
Wow.
from TMZ earlier in the day.
And then I sent you the next article, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then almost less than an hour later, we had Boomer following up with Lisa Marie Presley, singer-songwriter, and Elvis's daughter, dead at 54.
Yeah.
I know everyone immediately thinks hashtag died suddenly. Don't know what to tell you about that. It was a sudden cardiac arrest.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are trying to say, but she had a history of heart problems, so on and so forth. Don't know. We're just reporting. We're not going to editorialize on that.
But Lisa Marie Presley, smoky voice singer and songwriter who led a soap opera existence as the only child of Elvis Presley and the first wife of Michael Jackson, has died. She was 54. And yeah, it is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news that my beautiful daughter Lisa Marie has left us. She said she was the most passionate, strong, and loving woman I had ever known. We asked for privacy as we try to deal with this profound loss. Thank you for the love and prayers. At this time, there will be no further comment. That was Priscilla Presley stating that. So it's terrible. It seems like she had a bit of a music career herself, though. She
A little bit, but I don't really feel like she had the heart for it, to be honest with you. I think that she very much felt the pressure of living in her father's shadow.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. The same can be said of her son, who also took his own life after many struggles with substance abuse. And everyone in his immediate circle said, "Yeah, no, there's no doubt that family lineage, was heavy on his shoulders and definitely played a part in."
It's too bad.
But here, why don't you share that real quick?
Oh.
Oh no, I meant that. Yeah,
Yes, I'm here. So let me get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, look at that.
she was 2 years older than I was, so I kind of, grew up with her on the TV and, seeing her and thinking, "Wow, Elvis's daughter," But yeah, kind of sad.
Yeah, and it's too bad, really. It's I don't know what to say. Actually, I'm kind of shocked that she left us so soon. It's funny how she wasn't in the limelight for a while either. It seemed I hadn't heard from her, anything in the news
And
about her.
I feel that was at least partly out of choice. She
Right.
did try to start up a music career, and I feel like she didn't really want to push forward with it, so she backed away from it. And yeah, she didn't always gravitate towards, and I understand that. I mean, celebrity life is not, everyone wants to be rich and famous, and I say no, you don't. You want to be rich. You don't want to be famous.
Yeah, I think fame is. Yeah, that's the problem with YouTube, right? Some people become famous on YouTube, but not rich, right?
Yeah, that's right. You get the downside.
YouTube scoops up the money, and then no, there's apparently new YouTube rules that the creators are screaming about now. But yeah, no, I'm sorry to see her go, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's kind of like tragedies following that family, it seems. But did she have any other children besides her son?
She did, but I don't really remember details.
Maybe they're trying to stay out of the limelight. That might be for the best. Yeah.
But
all right,
move on to some other wonderful, happy news here.
Please. This is just the ongoing Disney. Let me read from this. Disney proxy fight board shakes up as activist investor claims self-inflicted woes. Plague company. Yeah, we actually alluded to this. Was it last week or the week before? And as I recall, what I said was, when you have an investor come forth and talk about, the company making decisions that are not in the best interest of the company, I guarantee you will be seeing some sort of maneuvering behind the scenes, up to and including a lawsuit for dereliction of fiscal responsibility. You remember, I specifically said dereliction of fiscal responsibility. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have this whole situation with Bob Iger coming back and Chapek being ousted in the middle of the night. And now, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll read from the article. There's stuff going on there right now, and I want to know what's going on. Do you remember when they have the Disney Investor Day where investors get to go up and actually ask questions to the CEO in public? Yep. That needs to happen. Investors need, whoever's still investing, they need to know what's going on inside that company.
Yeah,
because something's not right.
There is an investor war going on right now because and I had kind of alluded to this, myself a while back. I said there are people out there that invested in Disney because they want to see a return on their profit, or a return on their investment, right? They want to see profitability. And it looks like Nanette and I, who I think we've mentioned it on the show before, Nanette and I used to own stock in Disney. Mm-hmm. And the week that the whole scenario happened with the firing of Gina Carano, or the decision to not renew her contract, if you want to be very,
No, they were public about it. They were firing. Yeah. They were firing her. That was a public thing. If they had done it on the sly and just not renewed it, but
it was at that point I decided, and it was right around that time with the whole Mulan thing and thanking them for the support, specifically the town in and around that camp where they send you to think really, really hard. So I said I can't in good conscience continue to support this company. I want to sell our stocks. And at the time, I hadn't been following what the stock was doing. I thought I was taking a big loss. And turns out we actually made a decent profit off that. So I was kind of happy. And now, looking back, I'm happy we got out when we did, because now the stock is basically in free fall. But I had pointed out at the time, I said, there are people that are invested in Disney that are looking for a return on their investment, and there are others that are not looking for a return on their investment. They are looking to use Disney as a tool for social change. Companies like the very darkly colored stones and so forth. So you've got this infighting among conflicting stock owners, which of course is going to lead to situations like the Disney board and who is leading the board. So I don't know if you wanted to actually read from the article.
I'll read from the article real quick, yeah, because this is important. The Walt Disney Company shaking up its board of directors, tapping Nike executive chairman Mark Parker to be chairman effective as of its next annual
Nike.
meeting.
Let's call that one out too. So a company that has their shoes made by very little fingers that don't really have a choice in the matter for almost no money, sometimes no money at all. You call that whatever you want to call that.
It's the Colin Kaepernick company too. They were big on the whole his campaign.
Oh yeah, take a knee, but go support child slavery. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay.
For years, Nike was my go-to brand of sneaker. I would say, probably for the better part of maybe a couple of decades, I would get a new pair of Nikes every year or so. Then I noticed there was a very bad, nasty shakeup. A lot of executives got Me Too'd over there. New people took over, and I thought, we're not getting another pair of Nike shoes. Something bad is going on over there at the brand. And of course, this was before the whole Kaepernick campaign, but I knew something bad was going on over there when that was going on. Because, whether I don't know the whole Me Too thing. I get suspicious about because I think it gets weaponized. So,
absolutely, there's no doubt about it.
So anyway, they were let go. New people came in, and I'm assuming this guy is one of those new people. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But guess who left Disney? That's the big thing. Susan Arnold, who has been
Arnold,
Bob Iger retired from the company at the end of 2021, and who asked him to return last year, will step down from the board at the time. The company says her departure is consistent with Disney's 15-year board limit. Something's wrong here. Wasn't she the one who people suspected is the one that asked the board to get rid of Chapek? Was that the rumor going around?
No. So, there's a lot of rumors going around.
Yeah.
But
there's a rumor we don't know for a fact.
Keep in mind that Chapek was, for all visibility, her hand-chosen person, right? Mm-hmm. She brought in Chapek, and so everyone is looking and saying, well, and he seems to be pretty conservative, and she's LGB, but she seems pretty in the whole let's get profitable thing too. So we at one time we're seeing that as being kind of a positive thing, but then in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, holy crap, they fire Chapek. Where's Susan Arnold on? This was her guy. How was this a unanimous thing? And I think it was Comrade Posh who said, she's probably on her way out too. Sure enough, she's out.
So, Mark Parker's vision, incredible depth of experience, and wise counsel have been invaluable to Disney. I look forward to continuing to work with him in his new role, along with our other directors, as we chart the future course for this amazing company, said Bob Iger, Disney CEO, in a statement. On behalf of my fellow board members and the entire Disney management team, I also want to thank Susan for her superb leadership as chairman and for her tireless work over the past 15 years as an exemplary steward of the Disney brand. I'm not trusting that anything is going to change with Mark Parker being in there. I mean, I don't know the guy personally or know his stance, but I know that Nike, that's a woke company, so I'm not expecting anything to really change.
Well, what I can tell you is, the woke is not going to be changing. If anything, they're going to be doubling down on it.
Probably.
So all of you that were following a certain cantina owner that was saying, the woke is dead and things are changing and Star Wars is coming back, give up your copium already. It's not going to get better.
I'm waiting for that investor day meeting, though. Iger has to get some hard questions. Where is Disney going? Like these animated features that make no money. Why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars on them?
Yeah. Something. This is not done. There is going to be and honestly, Disney's reputation has never been worse. It is no longer a family brand. Disney overall is dead as a family brand. Families, responsible adults with children do not plop their kids down in front of the Disney Channel anymore. They do not say, hey, let's go for a family night, go to see this new Disney movie. They've learned their lesson very badly with films like, what was it?
Strange Worlds.
Strange Worlds and Turning Red or whatever it's called. And Buzz Lightyear and stuff.
Buzz Lightyear,
it's like, no, I don't want to have to answer the questions the kids are going to be asking about this. This is not the Disney I grew up with. We're done. Oh, look, DreamWorks has a new cartoon coming. Let's go check that out. You want to go to an amusement park? I heard there's a Nintendo World that we could go check out.
That's going to be huge. But even since then, Universal's been big. They had the Harry Potter land. I'm waiting, though. I think when that Nintendo World comes out, it's going to blow up. They got a Super Mario Brothers movie coming out. I know DreamWorks recently put out a Puss in Boots movie, a sequel recently that I heard was pretty good.
Well, we love the first
movies. One. Yeah.
We love the first one. I specifically bought that one for Netter. I'm going to have to get her this new one now.
Yeah, it came out over the holidays. I kept hoping it might outdo Avatar at the box office. Like that would be funny, but
I know Avatar is the outlier. But I'll tell you something else about Avatar. Avatar, you have to think of as a big budget independent film. This was not something Disney had any say over.
Not really. It's a holdover from 20th century Fox. Maybe that's done well. Do you think we could possibly get an Alita sequel greenlit, maybe to make Cameron happy?
The Alita Army is hopeful, and that's what they're saying. I personally think that my personal take on it, and it's a little bit more, black pill, is that they say they want to do it, but if this Avatar 2 does well enough, then Alita is going to be put to the back burner while they focus on Avatar 3, 4, and 5, or however many.
But that was why he got Robert Rodriguez to direct it to begin with, because originally Cameron was going to be the one to direct it, but I'm just too bogged down with Avatar, so he gave the reins over to Robert Rodriguez to direct it. That's where that happened there. So.
And if that happens, and you have Robert Rodriguez helming Alita, contemporaneously with whatever Avatar stuff is going forward, that would be the best of all worlds for the fans. But how often does what's logical and makes sense and what we hope for actually happen? I don't know, man. Just because they swore a blood oath doesn't necessarily mean it's actually going to happen until it actually happens.
Yes. So we'll see what happens. I mean, do you think they actually cut their thumbs and just?
And Netter's pointing out that this guy Rowan that she likes from Viva La Dirt League was in Avatar. That's why we got her the first Avatar movie. But I don't think he's in the second movie, so there's really not so much impetus to go and get the second one. But I'm sorry, I'm falling behind on my.
No, I almost blocked myself from the chat. I forgot you're posting the headlines. Okay.
I will start going. You're not going to read through these. I'm just going to go ahead and drop them in there.
We'll be here all night.
We've already let me.
The Polygon one, even though I don't like that site, I could probably read that one. But yeah, most of these I don't think.
Okay, so let me give you the bullet points here. Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. So Dungeons & Dragons' new license tightens its grip on competition. Okay, without reading the article, giving the high level. By the way, I'm going to drop a lot of links here. If you want to know more about what we're talking about here, go check out those links. Check out some of your favorite YouTube channels that are covering this. Some of the law tubers are covering it, but I will front load this. A lot of legalese. This game license, it's a legal document. It's a legal agreement. And you have lawyers on both sides saying it means this or it means that. And here's what it comes down to. There's ambiguity. It will not mean anything until it's decided in court. Okay? You can say this law means this, and you can say this law means that, but until it goes to court, it doesn't mean anything. It means whatever you want to believe it means. And that's where a lot of this is coming down. So Dungeons & Dragons' new license tightens its grip. I told you earlier at the top of the show, I was talking about the open game license and how it basically saved Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games in general. It created this wonderful synergy between the tent pole, Dungeons and Dragons, and all of the other fantasy role-playing games and all the other games that shared the open game license, the D20, the same game rule set. Because it wasn't just Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people don't realize this, but Wizards also owned, I don't know if they still own, but they did own the rights to the Star Wars role-playing game. And it used the D20 rules too. So it had an open game license as well, but being what Star Wars is, it's almost impossible for you to put out anything Star Wars related because everything Star Wars related is trademarked. So Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Yeah. So everyone knew the game license. They thought it was wonderful. But then we came to realize, this was a leak. This wasn't something they had officially put out yet, but they've had their 5th edition rules, which is done okay for them. I never touched it, but apparently this current younger generation of gamers is playing it and enjoying it and promoting it, and that's what you would get if you go to the store right now is this 5th edition if you ask for Dungeons & Dragons. And it's been operating under a version of the open game license, and they're like, you know what? We did an article last week that was talking about how someone said that Dungeons & Dragons is undervalued monetarily. We need to do something to make more money. So do they put out a new game setting, or do they put out new splat books, or do they put out a bunch of collectible miniatures? No. They're going to put out a new edition of the game and make you buy it all over again. They're not going to call it D&D 6, though. They're going to call it 1 D&D, I think, or something like that.
1 D&D?
I don't know.
To rule them all? I don't
yeah, well, see, and that's the unfortunate aspect of the naming convention, because that's the first thing people think. The evil Mordor, right? And they were going to write a new version of the open game license that was going to be incredibly restrictive. And whereas the original open game license was something to the effect of, you can put out whatever you want and monetize it for yourself, and you don't have to worry about us suing you or anything because you own that. And as long as you don't, use illithids and whatever, the Githyanki and whatever, which is proprietary, you're fine. You want to create your own game setting or whatever, as long as you attribute the open game license and put all of that information in there, and your players buy our core rule books, we're good. No, we don't think that's good enough. I think what we need to do is you can put it out in a similar agreement with us, but if at any point we decide that you're making too much money, we're going to come and take a big percentage of it. And we can change these terms at any time as long as we give you 30 days to cease and desist. And publishing companies are like, well, then fuck it. I'm not going to do anything for your new system. There's no monetary interest in it for me because I could put all the time and energy into putting out, this publication and then have to destroy all the books because you don't like it or you have a problem with it or, you go back on your word. Screw that. I won't do that. We'll just keep putting out this old stuff. And they're like, oh, and we're changing the wording so that you have to accept this one if you want to continue operating under the old one, and we're going to apply this retroactively, so you can't do that on old stuff either. And they're like, fuck you, say, because this agreement that we agreed to said in perpetuity. Now,
yeah, it did say in perpetuity, so...
At first, I thought this was just for the publishers that were putting out, splat books, companies like Paizo. I said all eyes on Paizo, because they're the big one in the room. A bunch of other smaller ones that probably can't afford to sue Hasbro. Keep in mind, Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro, and you know my love-hate relationship with that fucking company. But put that aside... And we also were talking about how Hasbro has lost a whole crap ton of money recently over how Magic is dying and how they've marketed that. check out our previous streams about that. Anyway, so yeah, that's this got out there and the fans hit the roof. And big YouTube channels that I wasn't even following, because I follow so many YouTube channels, I can't keep up with all of them. But there's a lot of big YouTube channels, all just are dedicated to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And they're all going, well, it looks like, from the way I read this applies to us too. So I can't do a channel talking about a review of a Dungeons and Dragons book or suggest, game, applications to go with a Dungeons and Dragons game, because this could fall under that, and then they come after me and shut me down. So screw it. I'm not going to be promoting D&D anymore. And for the past week, all of these channels have been putting out the top 10, the top 20, the top 50 role-playing games you could be playing instead of Dungeons and Dragons. So, yeah, it's really hurt. And the other big one that I didn't even think about was what I mentioned earlier in the stream, Critical Role. They're a big show with these, lower tier celebrities playing Dungeons and Dragons together,
right.
In a very, I'm sorry to break it to you folks, it's a very scripted, very, reality TV, which isn't really reality type of thing. I'm sorry. It's like wrestling, it's like all this other stuff.
Are the roles fake?
I have presumed probably, because they don't usually show the dice rolling. So you see them react, like, oh man, yes, got it. And sometimes when they're getting it, it's like, you needed a 20. I doubt that. That just seems too scripted.
Happens all the time.
But you know what? For all the people saying that, it's just like the same people that are saying, oh, wrestling's fake. I know it's fake. I don't care. It's still fun to watch. It's fun to watch. That's, I'm sorry. I'm gonna channel my inner Big Al here. I don't care if you don't like it. I enjoy it. And I know it's not real, but it's fun to watch. So anyway, they came out against it too. And they're like, yeah, no, we won't be, we'll just continue to play, but we will play a nondescript fantasy setting from now on. And people are leaving the game. Dungeons and Dragons fans revolt against new restrictions. It was really, really bad. It was a very, very bad week. Fans have been coming out left and right on social media saying they will not be supporting this anymore. What's really interesting is, for all the talk we've done about D&D and all the wokey stuff going on.
Yeah, we did that last week, in fact.
I'll tell you what, though, the different sides of that have put those arguments aside and said, we are unified in walking away from D&D at this point. This is crap. When you cut through those kinds of divides, you want to bring the fans together, yes, but not bringing the fans together against you. That's, yeah.
I think they really screwed the pooch, and I think part of the problem was they have a bunch of guys, and they're thinking, how do we get more gold out of the golden goose? And now they're going to kill the golden goose. That's what it's sounding like to me.
It is. It's like, we want the eggs right now, so let's cut the goose open to take them out. And they're realizing that's not how it works. And you should think you wouldn't have to tell actual business people this, people running big multi-million-dollar companies. But I just dropped this one. Canceled D&D Beyond subscriptions forced Hasbro's hand. So this is a progressing story here. Just to explain what my understanding of what D&D Beyond is especially during the whole pandemic thing and stuff, couldn't get together at the physical tabletop. So Hasbro is trying to come up with this, and a lot of gamers are doing this through third parties, virtual tabletops, Skype, all this kind of stuff. And you can pay a subscription to use a proprietary service, pull up, buy or add maps, buy or add tokens to represent characters, stuff like that, little add-ons and tchotchkes. I mean, it's not a horrible idea. This idea of a subscription service to play a virtual tabletop game when you can't be together. Honestly, since the pandemic, that's how we've been playing our Wednesday game. Not through Hasbro, not through D&D Beyond, through our own server and our own setup and whatnot. But yeah, you could. People are canceling it left and right. And they're like, no, we don't want to be locked into a company that does business like this, And there was supposed to be a, like an online Hasbro talk about what's coming with D&D Beyond. I think it was last Monday. They canceled it.
The online thing. That's yeah.
They canceled it because they knew what was coming. They were basically shamed into not going forward with it. I mentioned, and I'll just drop this link here. I mentioned Critical Role coming out about their feelings on the thing. You can go check it out directly. But so we still hadn't gotten the official word of what was actually contained. We just had this leak. And Paizo was doing what a professional, competitive company should do. They were biding their time. They didn't, jump on the bandwagon and start castigating or saying anything. But eventually they did have to do something. So this is, and this is actually directly to their community blog, the Paizo page. This was an official announcement. They basically said, we don't know what our competitors are doing, but we are announcing our own open game license for our own Pathfinder game, which is like our group refers to it as D&D 3.6. It was like it took the place of 3.5. It's almost exactly the same, but it's a little different.
Is it different enough that TSR can't even lay a claim to it?
Well, when I say it's different, the rules are almost identical.
Right.
But again, like I said, you can't copyright a rule set. And yes, they are different. And if you wanted to go by like a copyright, it is different enough that if you were to try to play a Pathfinder adventure using 3.5 D&D rules, you could do it if you squint and twist your head and hold your breath, but it would not work very well at all. For example, there is in 3.5, and I don't want to get too far into the rules on this, but just to give you one example, you have skills that you put points into. And in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, you have a skill for listening, and for spotting, and for searching. So you could search for traps, you could spot somebody hiding behind the corner, or you could hear someone breathing on the other side of the wall, right? Well, Pathfinder took all three, and you'd have to put points into each one, Yeah, so you'd have to decide how to divvy up your points. Pathfinder said that's stupid. We're just going to take those three, combine them together, and we're going to call it perception. So you make a perception roll. You do a perception roll to find the trap. You do a perception roll to spot the guy around the corner. You do a perception check to hear anything. Or you could even say, I want to do a perception check to see if I hear anything on the other side of the door. I would make you make that perception roll and go, well, you don't hear anything, but you notice that the light that's coming under the door looks like a shadow goes over it. That wouldn't happen in 3.5. It can in Pathfinder. Anyway, that's... So they decided, you know what? Exactly what Dungeons & Dragons did, 15 years ago, we're doing that now. We're doing our own open game license. Anyone that doesn't want to work with D&D can... They didn't say it this way, but the implication was, if you don't want to work with D&D, come and work with us, and we will continue that same spirit, But then when Wizards finally starts talking about what they're actually going to do, Pathfinder took point on it, and they said, yeah, if you decide to come after us and retroactively change our agreement, we'll fucking sue you. Because that is their whole business. And Paizo is big enough to go toe-to-toe with them. And honestly, I don't think it would just be Paizo. I think you'd have Kobold Games and a bunch of other companies jumping in there with them. It would almost become a class action thing.
So I have a question. Are they trying to walk this back now, Wizards of the Coast? I mean, are they...
Funny you should ask that, because my last point, Wizards of the Coast walks back new licensing rules following outcry. Again, I recommend you read the article. I don't think it's as definitive as that, and I think some of this is still going to play out, and I don't know, may play out in the courtroom. It'll be interesting to see what comes of it. I have just given you the skeleton, the 1,000-foot overview of this story. You can dig into it as deeply as you want. But, I mean, honestly, you know, and we didn't even actually play D&D on Wednesday. My group got together and we talked about this. And, we all pretty much agreed it doesn't really matter to us because we stepped away from D&D at 3.5. We didn't continue with 4. We're not even really playing D&D anymore. We moved over to Pathfinder. And Pathfinder has gone to their 2nd edition. And we said, no, we're staying with the 1st edition rules. We're not going any farther. And one of the things I've explained to you, especially when it came to all this goofy DIE inclusion stuff, was you can take that or leave it. It's your own game world. You got the rules setting. If there's a campaign world that you want to buy, you can buy it. You don't like something in that book, you ignore it, you know? And that's one of the things that some of these YouTubers are doing. They'll say, yeah, so if you want to play The Curse of Strahd, it's a really, really great game, but this introductory game called Death House, great idea, but there's a lot of things about it that are really stupid. So if you're a dungeon master that wants to run it, watch my video and I'll tell you the things that I changed that I think made it better. You know, I mean, you can do that. It's your tabletop. You want to include a wheelchair accessible dungeon? You can frickin' do that if you're that lame. I mean that intentionally, pun intended.
Oh. Horizon Talker, though, he said that you can sort of copyright presentation of the rules. One thing Pathfinder 2 did is reformat the presentation and make it unique. Yeah, but they're offering it for free, though. That's the whole point, though. They made a statement recently where they're offering their stuff for free, right? So
well, they're not offering the rules set for free. They're offering the same original idea that as long as you buy our rule set,
you can make whatever you want using our rule set.
You can create splat books, you can create whatever, a campaign setting, adventure modules. See, that's the big one they want you to do. They want you to make adventure modules set either in their campaign setting or in your own or in a generic one. Campaign can usually be dropped into any campaign setting with a dungeon and a backstory and characters of your own creation. But, if you're creating stats using our rules, then just put in the front of it, open game license. You need to use Pathfinder rules in order to play this, and we're good, So,
what question for you? Off topic a little bit. Star Frontiers, was that any good?
Okay, Star Frontiers,
science fiction.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for saying TSR. Yeah, that goes back to about that era when I was first getting into Dungeons and Dragons. That was the basic era, and yes, Star Frontiers was the sci-fi version of the basic Dungeons and Dragons, and you actually could, if you had some reason for them to cross over, and there actually were adventures that did cross them over. You could have your barbarian character end up in science fiction space setting, and
Like
it
a
would
Buck
work.
Rogers type character
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah. I never got into the lore of it. It had its own lore, but I liked it fine. And I even said back then, I'm like, boy, I could do a Star Trek game using these rules.
Interesting.
Could have done.
Okay.
Absolutely. They also had, there was a third one called Boot Hill. It was a Western version of.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, you could play Doc Holliday or whatever, or some other kind of gunslinger. Sure.
Was there a Mexican Revolution scenario too? I'm sure. Was that a module?
If there wasn't, you absolutely could make one up yourself. Hell, I don't see why you couldn't have played. Heck, you combine Boot Hill with Dungeons and Dragons because they were compatible. You could play Zorro.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, there were rules for using whips, and you'd basically roll them up as a thief or swashbuckler character. Yeah, you could do that.
And of course, there were horror role-playing games back then too, but they weren't made by TSR, right? There was Chill, I think was the name of one of them.
I vaguely remember Chill. I didn't really get into that one so much. It wasn't until White Wolf came out with Vampire the Masquerade I really got into that one. Yeah, but that's a whole different ball of wax. That's way more role-playing and way less dice role-playing.
Doc Holliday, I'll be your Huckleberry.
Nice.
Okay, but so going forward though with this whole D&D situation, what do you think is going to happen with Wizards of the Coast? Do you think they're going to dial it back and try and save face now, or do you?
They're going to try, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think that what I've been saying all along, even before all of this, where I said you don't need Dungeons and Dragons to play Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, people can make up their own stuff. If you already have the rule books, whatever version, I think 4th and 5th edition are stupid, but if that's what your flavor is, enjoy it. You can convert. They'll tell you can't, but you can, without a great deal of difficulty, convert the modules and stuff from one to another. And that's what a lot of these companies are going to start doing now. They're going to start putting out their own campaign settings and adventures that are non-rule specific. So how would you do that? Okay. Instead of you encounter a skeleton and here are his stats, you just say, this room is filled with 3 skeletons. You figure out what stats you want to use based on whatever rule set you're using. See? And then you don't even have to acknowledge Paizo or D&D or any of them. So it could be good for Paizo, or it could be bad for the community overall, or it could be good. It could be good for independent game developers, actually. But overall, it's going to be a net bad for Hasbro. They lost a lot of market share over their Magic, and now they're almost entirely losing the D&D brand.
They burn their brand, basically.
I am not even sure what to predict for their upcoming movie. That's going to be something for us to talk about in the future.
That's going to be a make or break thing, because I think they're expecting it to do like Marvel style.
Their only chance of saving D&D at this here. Okay, this is what I will say regarding the movie coming up. Their only chance of saving D&D is to pivot. The game is not that important. It's more of a life brand, right? Just like Marvel. The comics aren't really that important. You can come see our movies, okay? The comics exist. You can read them if you want, but come see the movies and watch the TV shows and buy the merch, buy the toys. If they start going that way, they might be able to save Dungeons and Dragons. But I'll tell you what, they're owned by Hasbro. They better start putting out some fucking toys. There was a Hasbro release. The action figures have started coming out for the movies that are 6-inch scale and scale with all their 6-inch that I don't get into. Nothing that looks like I'm interested in. I didn't even see the Chris Pine action figure, so I don't really know what their marketing strategy is there. But,
you could redo that action figure and make him into a Steve Trevor action figure.
But I think there already is a Steve Trevor Chris Pine figure out there, so that would kind of be unnecessary effort. But I like how you think.
If
You
you
know I
want,
do that with toys.
yes, if you want to run the best freeform D20 game you ever, check out the Index Card RPG. It's a really stripped down, flexible game that lets you do just about anything if handled right. Okay, good to
Wow.
keep in mind.
Well, thanks for mentioning that. I didn't know about that. Never actually heard about that one. And I've played some obscure games. I've been to game nights at my local gaming shop, and I'll sit down at a random table. And I played one horror game that was there were no dice involved. It involved being it was like maybe it was this one. You get handed some cards and you decide they infer scenario or skills or something, and you just decide how you use them. And when you go to use them, you say, I want to do this based on this, and you just spin a yarn, and you just got to convince the dungeon master that it sounds plausible enough to work. And it was fun. It was fun. I don't see creating a campaign out of it, but it was a fun game. So,
And if you encounter a burning skeleton, leather jacket, run. It's Ghost Rider.
well, unless you're not the one that he's there for, and he's not out to extract the vengeance on you or whatever it is.
Did you see Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance with Nick Cage years back?
Yes, I did. That was the one with Sam Elliott, right?
Sam Elliott, no,
Didn't
that was
Sam
the
Elliott
first
play-
one.
Oh, okay.
That was the first Ghost Rider. This was the follow-up.
Then maybe I did.
Follow-up. It had I had Idris Elba in it as a French monk, which was kind of funny. But
I guess I didn't then.
Nick Cage does the really over-top performance. It's like, if you're gonna do bad, like he's trying to threaten a guy. And he's like, the rider wants to come out. And he wants to eat your soul or something. Like he's doing his over-the-top Nick Cage business. That was a funny movie. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the last line, because he's going up against the devil in this movie. He's called Work. The devil has many names, and like the devil goes like, and when he's losing the fight, he goes, You're the worst effing mistake I ever made. And then he says, go home, instead of go to hell, go home, because that's where he's from. And he says, it was, I don't know. I got a kick out of it. Maybe it's not for everybody, but Gorilla's Random Thoughts, welcome. You're just in time for, you like Superman?
I love Superman. And
Superman director Richard Donner had some strong opinions about the DCU's take on the character. Maybe you just need to keep quiet, old man.
Well, he's going to be keeping quiet now, I guess.
It's it's hard to believe he's still gone. I wish he was still around.
He died. I was going to say last year. I forgot we've actually moved into 2023. He died in July of 2021. But this article comes out referencing some things he said before he passed.
It was funny. Did you on the Superman 2 the Donner cut DVD? He had they showed him working with the editor trying to refix the cut, and he said, "Yeah, we want to do this, but we only had enough budget to do this effect or something." He says, "You didn't go over budget?" No, he says, "You're never going to make it in this town," or something like that.
That's funny.
He's funny. He class act all the way. But Superman director Richard Donner had some strong opinions about the DCU's take on the character. Zack Snyder has made no secret of his more cynical take on superheroes. He announced his DC arrival by having Superman snap necks and level cities in Man of Steel back in 2013. To be fair, he didn't level cities in Man of Steel. He just stood by while the cities got leveled. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm being
no, I mean, and this is the point that I make. It's like you make that defense and you go, well, it's not his fault that these are. I'm like, this same fight was fought in Superman 2. And what did he do? He led them out of the city. He specifically went out of his way to save people and then ran because he did not want to endanger people. I mean, that was good writing. That shows his heroism and shows I'm not here to be, an egoist. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if anyone thinks I'm a coward. I'm here to help these people. And if my staying here and fighting gets them killed, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the case in Man of Steel, but anyway, the DCU has remained a grim, desaturated slog ever since. In 2019, the director was asked about his penchant for having these legendary heroes, specifically Batman, commit murder and snapped, Wake the F up, came the response before Snyder spoke in more general terms. It's a cool point of view to be like, my heroes are still innocent. My heroes didn't effing lie to America. My heroes didn't embezzle money from their corporations. My heroes didn't effing commit any atrocity. That's cool. But if you're living in you're living in an effing dream world. What is this? Wait a minute. What's with the embezzling money? Everyone embezzles money.
Well, and this is
and
this is what we've said, and this is what we've said about Zack Snyder all along, and all the people that are such big Zack Snyder fans. Oh, it's this is a more realistic Superman. Don't even start talking realistic. We're talking about a man that flies and shoots laser beams out of his eyes. I don't even want to hear realistic. However, you want to talk about realistic. Let's look back at Donner. What was Donner's catchphrase throughout Superman? Verisimilitude, right? He was taking some very fantastic, fanciful things, but he said, but let's take it seriously. This is, Mario Puzo level, story, but it happens to be Superman, right? Yeah. It was character driven, right? Morality versus evil and greed. The evil and the greed, fine. You put that on Lex Luthor. But Superman is above all of that.
He doesn't imagine that there can be good people. That's the problem with these Hollywood types. They're so drenched in their own depravity, they don't understand that regular people. And I'm not going to say we're all quote unquote flawless as Superman, but
Matanui makes a great point. Committing atrocities isn't exactly heroic. Exactly. How do you call these superheroes if they're not heroes? It doesn't make any sense. And so this is the other thing. This is also why, everybody who's coming out to defend, Zack Snyder and release the Snyderverse and all this other bullshit, they're the reason that this thing has gone on as long as it did, when it should have been rebooted after the second, after Justice League. They should have just shut it down.
Aquaman kept it alive. Aquaman kept it alive because Aquaman was a big hit.
Aquaman, Wonder Woman, all of it. And I said at the time, this is just good enough to limp along and keep this bullshit universe alive. And it's the Snyder bots that have been doing it. And that's the worst part of it.
They obviously didn't go see Black Adam because that didn't do so hot.
Well, and let me, this is a link to a Midnight's Edge video last week, and it's keyed to a specific time reference. Okay. Oh, no, actually, you know what? I realize that's the wrong link. That was another topic I want to talk about. Go check it out. It's Tom going on a rant about physical media, but I'm sorry, that wasn't the one that I was going to share. Unfortunately, I don't have the link that I did want to share about this topic, but there was a link to a Midnight's Edge video that I wanted to share, and forgot to put it in.
If you want to hunt for it, I'll keep reading the article.
It'll take too long.
Okay,
but go ahead, read the article though.
I was going to say fans were divided on this 21st century take on Superman. Henry Cavill's portrayal was generally praised, but audiences weren't sure how to take the gritty, murdering version of a hero who'd previously been defined by this motto. Truth, justice, and the American way. Now, almost 10 years later, Cavill has well and truly departed from the role, and the Snyderverse looks set to be completely dismantled in the near future. And we've all had time to reflect, and I can't help but think most of us feel like Richard Donner, like director of 1978 Superman the movie, wasn't shy about his take on broody, dark Superman in the wake of DCU's struggles. His comments feel all the more relevant. Back in the 1970s, Donner introduced the world of the superhero blockbuster with his classic take on DC's iconic hero. Superman the movie provided a blueprint from which almost every successive superhero film would borrow. As Donner saw it, Superman was a fantasy that really believed in truth, justice, and the American way, and the character set out to make a good movie that is beloved about this beloved character and treat him with our greatest respect. That made for a true celebration of the character that aimed to instill a sense of hope in audiences, all of which makes it one of, if not the best Superman movie to this day. It's no surprise then that Donner wasn't too impressed with the kind of deconstruction enterprise Snyder was running. Speaking to Den of Geek back in 2018, the director questioned the modern take on Superman. I don't see this is a quote. I don't see Superman as the way he's being treated today, which is in a very dark fashion. I think we're in a strange dark days of movie making, but Superman was a hero. He was a fantasy, but we've believed him. He's not treated like that anymore. I'm not happy with it. Donner was obviously referring to the movie version of Superman, who've been thoroughly Snydered at this point. I have a question. Slash film, are they? They're not part of Fandom Menace, anything like that. There's a regular set.
I don't know where they fall on that spectrum.
Okay, because it just seems like I think everybody is now, they're tired of holding water for the Snyderverse if they ever did, and
well,
I think they're
there's
ready to
a
start
reality
tearing it
that you eventually
Yeah.
can't get past. Okay, I mean, I won't get political, but there's political things going on. People have been saying and getting shut down on social media for, and then the truth starts coming out, and you go, "Oh, the conspiracy theorists were right all along." Big shock. Well, same thing is happening with the Snyderverse. The Snyderbots have been very boisterous, loud minority on the interwebs, fighting to keep this thing alive, and it's been limping along because of them, but the numbers just don't bear it out. You can argue and pretend whatever you want. You can make whatever case you want for the gritty, realistic whatever, but numbers don't lie. You folk are not enough to keep this very expensive brand going in the theaters. So it's now dead. Sorry, it's over. Now we're going and rebooting, and we're going to do something else. You had your time. It's over. The same thing you all said to us. Time to grow up, Grandpa. Things move on. This is a new Superman. Well, guess what? Now you're going to get the new Superman.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
and we'll see
exactly.
what this new Superman is like. I can't vouch for whether it's going to
And
be
if
good or
you
not.
really do love it, make sure you get out there and watch it. And make sure you buy the DVDs. Buy DVDs as gifts for your friends. Make sure those... the Elite Army is the one that's really showing you what needs to happen. You know, when they go to a convention and they ask... what's her name to sign their thing, she looks up in the camera and goes, "Buy those Blu-rays, baby," because she knows that's what's going to get them a sequel.
Another thing to Warner Brothers, I don't want multiple cuts of this thing.
Right.
Get it right in the theaters.
Do it the
that
first
was
time
something,
and be done with it.
That's something Snyder did all the time. Like with the Batman vs. Superman, there was a version that came out on Blu-ray that was his true version, not the version we saw in the theater. And perhaps that version is better. That's the one I watched, the one that was in the theater, because apparently there were, I guess, transitions and shots that weren't there in the theatrical version. Like there are things that Superman does that doesn't make any sense. Like I think in the extended edition, you see him rescuing members of Congress, I guess, after it gets blown up. But in the theatrical version, he just flies away after the Congress gets blown up. So,
yeah,
you know,
that certainly doesn't help the narrative. And that's the other thing to keep in mind too. You know, we tend to blame the writers for some bad decisions. Sometimes it's the editor's fault. So,
yeah,
you know, that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I'm glad that we've gotten this kind of justification for the Donnerverse, for Richard Donner himself, and for Superman. I think it's time to very boldly, not be afraid to go to every time you have some Snyder bot come give you shit about, you know, just tell them the reason this is happening is because not enough of you exist. You didn't put enough money into this. It didn't do financially well. So too bad, so sad.
we have 4 more of this Snyderverse movies to get through, though. Before we even get to this reboot, we have Aquaman sequel. We have Blue Beetle, which I'm assuming is part of Snyderverse, but maybe they'd be
It
smart
has
to
to
make it
be,
a standalone thing. Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Flash.
Yeah. Actually, you know, I'm going to backpedal a little on that Blue Beetle thing. There's been some things that we've heard Gunn and other WB representatives say that implies that it's mostly a hard reboot, but not everything is being rebooted. I'm wondering if Blue Beetle might be the thing they're referring to. It's very clear that after Aquaman comes out, we're not getting any more of him as Aquaman. We're not getting any more of what's her name as Wonder Woman. Cavill's out as Superman.
They help sell those movies, though. Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot. I mean, whether or not you like them, I mean, they were movie stars. I do consider both the movie stars, and they did sell tickets to those movies.
But none of those three has said anything that burned any bridges. So there is absolutely no reason we can't see them come back. There's even been a lot of fan speculation and even some Hollywood speculation about Jason Momoa coming back in a different role in the new DC universe going forward. Fan favorite is Lobo. I would love to see that.
He would work as Lobo.
Wouldn't he?
But yeah. All right, go ahead and paste the next one. Streaming wars, bum, which I think are finally starting to come to an end. At least that's what the article says.
We said this had to happen. We said it here, and now reality is catching up.
Nobody has money.
Right.
They're all hurting right now. They don't want to. I don't know how vocal they are because, of course, we have to live in denial in this country about the economic situation. At least the media does.
Yeah.
But they can't keep spending money and greenlighting 100 different series and throwing them on these streaming platforms. It's not going to work. The new cancel culture, where renewals, green lights, and productions aren't what they used to be. I suspect that a lot of these shows, like this Velma show, they all got greenlit because they just throw content on the platform. We don't care who we hire. We don't care what it's about. Just throw content on there. I think those days are coming to an end.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and read this.
Well, before you do, let me just comment on that. Mm-hmm. The big problem with that is that it's almost like the same kind of mentality of there is no such thing as bad publicity. That's not true. There absolutely is such a bad thing as bad publicity. And just throwing it up for content does not help if it actually loses you money. If it kills your brand, if it hurts your bottom line, that's not good content. So you need to start putting out good stuff.
Yeah. So at first it seemed like a bizarre anomaly. In August, Warner Brothers Discovery President and CEO David Zaslav decided to shelve the already finished HBO Max Batgirl movie forever. Many more projects were not only canceled but also removed from their services, ranging from the already renewed series fresh off the first seasons and in production on the second, like Minx. What's Minx?
I have no idea.
I'll have to look it up later. And others that were supposed to be tent poles like Westworld. Zaslav did not like Westworld. I think maybe it was very expensive and it wasn't doing the ratings like the first season. I think he was annoyed because he's like, this thing's not pulling the ratings. Why are we spending so much money on it? It didn't get its fourth season and he yanked it from the platform. I guess they're going to sell it to a different streaming service to air.
Or license, I don't know.
Like give it to Netflix. You can have Westworld. Give us some money, which is just bizarre to me. Anyway, okay. Dozens of cold shows and movies later, HBO Max had a hastily dug graveyard strewn with existing content mowed down by accountants. It looked like bean counters gone wild, but when Warner Brothers Discovery currently holds nearly $47 billion in net debt, every dollar counts. So wait a minute. This company has $47 billion in debt, Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yep.
So Zaslav has to basically turn that around and start making stuff that's profitable, or the company's not going to get rid of that debt.
Yeah.
How can a company be $47 billion in debt and still be feasible? Unless that's why they gave it to Discovery to fix.
This kind of goes back to, in a way, it touches every article we've talked about before this. We've got morons making very stupid decisions at these companies, and it's the whole socialist concept. Eventually you run out of other people's money, and they cannot continue.
We're done with this chapter, WBDC Phil Gutter Weidenfeld said last week of the barrel burn. He referred to 2022 as a year of restructuring, 2023 as a year of relaunching and rebuilding. Warner Brothers Discovery may be done right-sizing its pipeline, but the industry is not. With 5 weeks before production began today, Paramount Plus revoked its green light on the movie adaptation of 2011 to 2017 Comedy Central series Workaholics. Per creator Adam Devine, P Plus told us we didn't fit their new global strategy, he said via Instagram. Also today, Netflix unrenewed season 2 of animated show Inside Job. Last week's stars removed Dangerous Liaisons, Becoming Elizabeth, and Step Up from its service. All three were previously canceled, with Dangerous Liaisons as a season 2 unrenewal. Also last week, AMC Network's unrenewed second season of Moonhaven canceled. Completed second seasons for both 61st Street and Pantheon, and killed the first season of Invitation to a Bonfire, with 4 of 6 episodes produced. Does that mean they killed the first season before the last 2 episodes got made?
I mean, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
The in-production sci-fi comedy series Damascus, from Emmy-winning Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul executive producer Mark Johnson, was also shut down at the network. Wow. I'm surprised that hadn't even aired yet. That might get him very angry, because Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, they were AMC's huge hit shows. And they're just canceling this thing before it's even been finished?
Well, and this goes to exactly what you were saying, right? This idea that
they were the
days of
shows.
just throwing out content just to throw out content are over. Now they need to start thinking through what is really a good idea to do.
But you figure they want to keep them, unless they're really hurting for money.
Well,
okay.
I don't have any greater insight than you do, but your logic sounds sound to me.
Well, I'm just going to say this show didn't even get a chance to air to even see if it would get an audience, and then they yank it. I don't know. Something's odd going on over AMC. Well, Zaslav seemed to open a Pandora's box by canceling Batgirl last August. Back in summer 2020, Netflix cited pandemic.
Well, we know why that happened, right? We know that's a perfect example of the thing you were talking about. They said, this is so bad. This is going to hurt the brand. We must stop it. And I think that the writing was already on the wall for the reboot anyway, so.
I'm so curious about this Batgirl movie now. I mean, we'll never see it, but
I would be surprised if it doesn't end up getting leaked at some point, kind of the way the Wonder Woman
pilot.
The pilot got released, yeah, and for years there was that Captain America movie going around that was never released.
I remember that
eventually got released, yeah.
So let's see. As well as the 4th and final season of Love Comedy Glow. So Glow has been canceled. That'd be fair for your show gets 4 seasons.
Was it really beloved though?
I didn't watch it.
I didn't either.
It's about the female wrestlers.
Female wrestlers, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Paramount Plus.
If I want to watch female wrestlers, I'll watch female wrestlers. I'm not going to watch a show about female wrestlers.
Paramount Plus canceled renewed season 3 of Mark Cherry series Why Women Kill. I saw commercials for that. It didn't pique my interest. But while none of this is exactly new, the scale, the down economy, and streaming's tempered reality has placed the practice in vogue. What initially looked like an opportunistic but crude way to cut costs now appears to be an acceptable strategy, though perhaps not to the cast and creatives of shelf projects. We're even seeing completed series, both those that aired and those that may never disappear. One person from a prominent streaming service told IndieWire for this story that the pandemic led to a surge in unrenewals and cancellations. For a period, nearly all productions ceased. Some were shuttered longer than others due to local area outbreaks, strict ordinances, and positive cases on set. The newfound reality made it more reasonable to cut bait on fringe renewals, or for those that with particularly tricky, read huge cast multiplications, overseas sets, production plans. Star Series Dangerous Liaison, shot entirely in France with locations that included Chateau de Neuville, north of Paris, and Theatre Monsieur of Versailles, was canceled after being picked up for a season 2 before season 1 aired. Why do they do this? They pick it up for season 2 before the first season airs, before you know if it has an audience.
I don't know. I think I've always speculated that it had to do with I don't know how to say this without it sounding worse than it might actually be, but like backroom deals. There's more going on than just the simple this show and its success or
Do
failure.
they know the
It's like,
owners of those estates in France, and they're getting
yeah,
kickbacks? I don't
well,
know.
I don't know about that, but maybe more specifically, it's like, okay, I owe you, for this, that, and the other, so I'm gonna make sure that this show gets a second season so that you get your money on it, and you know that's part of the agreement. I don't know, stuff like that. That's why I call it like backroom deals, but it's business. Nothing necessarily illegal about it, but maybe it's not the most logical in terms of business.
Let's see. Movie producers are familiar with the busted theatrical, a once promising project that a studio later decides isn't worth the cost of theatrical release. Such films are rarely shelved altogether. They usually find a home on streaming or video on demand. For TV producers, the best case scenario is finding another buyer for your suddenly homeless series if the deal between network and studios allows it. I don't know. This all just seems like a mess. Is this version of cancel culture here to stay? Ha ha ha. The answer is probably. It certainly would cost networks and streamers less to decline a project in the first place, but this is the town that invented ghosting. Hollywood is well known for being
Yeah,
much easier to
that's
get maybe
true.
than a no, and finding a new way to save money is the next best thing to a revenue stream. It's unlikely to give up that privilege. If there's anything this year proved, it's that just because people are in the middle of making a show, that doesn't oblige you to finish or release it. And
Yep.
now to our last article.
Yep. There we go. And I've been predicting this for a long time. I think this is well past due to happen.
Why am I imagining something that's basically Deadly Women? Dangerous Liaisons. That's based on it's a famous book, right?
Yeah. I don't know what it is in French, but yeah.
I think that's what it translates to.
There was actually a good film version of it back in the
With
90s.
John Malkovich, right? I think was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The end of Netflix.
And Michelle Pfeiffer, as I recall.
Yes. I think somebody else was in it too. Not Kate Winslet. Somebody else like that. Was it Uma Thurman? Maybe. I
Oh,
don't know.
damn it. Now I got to look.
All right. This year may mark the end.
1988. It's older than I thought. Glenn Close.
Glenn
John
Close.
Malkovich, Glenn Close. Oh, you were right. Uma Thurman, Michelle Pfeiffer, Keanu Reeves. I'd actually forgotten that. Man, I'm going to have to watch Dangerous Liaisons again. That was a good movie.
If you've ever seen the movie Cruel Intentions, that was sort of like a modern remake, like if it was taking place in modern times. It was inspired by Dangerous Liaisons.
Yeah, the only thing anyone really remembers about Cruel Intentions is Buffy kissing another girl. That's the only thing people remember.
Was that Selma Blair?
Selma Blair,
serves.
right.
Okay.
Right.
This year may mark the end of the Netflixization of that thing we used to call television, the clamor to meet consumers where they are on their phones and Apple TVs, but most definitely not in front of a television with a cable box and a bundle of linear channels. Produced a streaming gold rush that was boon for writers and directors and famous people who could get barely baked projects greenlit without so much as a pitch deck. The rush by legacy media brands to launch streaming platforms was accelerated during the pandemic lockdown of 2020. Were they just expecting all of us to just stay inside and watch streaming all the time now? Was that what they were banking on?
Well, yeah, and especially going into the pandemic, that's what it was looking like.
But with Wall Street no longer enthralled to a potential streaming gold rush that never really materialized, 2023 may be the year the media industry is finally forced to live within its means. The streaming wars, the term is something of a misnomer since Netflix won the war before it even commenced, birthed a plethora of new platforms and a glut of content, much of it forgettable, and more than the population of connected consumers could realistically consume. It spurred all manner of irrational exuberance on the part of content providers, flush with subscriber cash and hungry for ever more original content to feed the digital maw. Lavish development deals rained down on reliable hitmakers Shonda Rhimes, Ryan Murphy, and people who had never seen the inside of a department meeting, the Obamas, Harry and Meghan. Now the economic headwinds, inflation, recession are blowing home the roosting chickens. A spate of pre-holiday layoffs rocked the industry. Thousands of rank-and-file employees have been pink-slipped, but so have lavishly paid executives, most famously Disney chief executive Bob Chapek, who was unceremoniously dumped in the wake of a disastrous earnings report and succeeded by his predecessor, who handpicked him, Bob Iger. Warner Brothers Discovery shuttered streaming service CNN Plus has so far laid off more than 1,000 employees across the company, canceled shows and scratched movies. The completed 90 million Batgirl in favor of write-downs as CEO David Zaslav, saddled with an eye-popping 50 million in post-merger debt, has promised to find 3 billion in annual savings. Paramount Global nixed its Showtime streaming app to parting ways with veteran executive David Nevins and CBS Entertainment chief Kelly Cobb while enacting layoffs in multiple departments, including marketing and ad sales. Disney rolled out a range of cost-cutting measures, including layoffs, hiring freezes, and limits on company travel. Again, I'm still not really sure. Paramount, Showtime, they own Showtime, correct? Why don't they just make Showtime with Paramount Plus, have all the Showtime shows on there? Apparently, there's some cable Paramount channel, which is where I guess the Yellowstone show premieres, because people are angry that the new season is not on Paramount Plus because I think it's a cable exclusive for this Paramount channel they have on there. Wouldn't it make sense instead of having a Paramount pay premium channel on cable? Why not just use Showtime since that's also your premium cable channel? Does any of this make sense?
Not at all. But in fairness, what I will say about it is that they're probably going about it, and if they're smart, they're going about it the same way they did with what's it called? With cable. You know, the cable bundles didn't make a lot of sense. You know, it was whatever deals and licenses they put together and offered out there. I think we're going to start seeing the same thing going forward with some of these companies.
At Netflix, which lost half its value in 2022 compared to 17%, hundreds of employees were let go, mostly in the United States. Though it still plans to spend about $17 billion annually on content, roughly what it has shelled out in recent years. Late last year, Netflix launched a lower-price ad-supported tier after years of mocking the industry's standard ad dollar imperative. Disney Plus also launched an ad-supported tier, while Peacock launched an advertising-based video on demand. And AVOD service and Hulu, Paramount Plus, and Maximum previously offer both ad-supported and premium tiers. For consumers, the industry's annus horribilis will mean less content, though viewers will be excused for not noticing. But isn't that what they're selling these streaming platforms on? You get exclusive content, right?
In theory, yes.
So how is this going to increase subscribers if they're putting less content on there? Unless maybe they're going to try for more quality content rather than quantity. That might do the trick.
In theory, absolutely. And that's the kind of stuff you hear David Zaslav talking about, right?
How many people back in the day, they kept subscribed to HBO if only for The Sopranos and maybe a few movies in here and there, but it was really The Sopranos. They would stay, and it's like, well, I could cancel HBO, but it's a pain. Plus, Sopranos will be back next year, and that's how it was back in the day. Of course, to be fair, canceling a cable channel was a lot more complicated than canceling streaming.
So you might have your premium channels, but you also have your basic channels too that carry the,
So the shift will not take hold everywhere, which has the biggest inventory of content and no discernible content strategy. Shows no signs of identifying a strategy. This is, after all, a company that spent $20 million on the well-meaning but middling reviewed documentary Wildcat about an Afghanistan war veteran and an adorable baby ocelot. An enormous amount of money for a nature film. This was Netflix?
Yeah.
Did you see Wildcat?
No.
Okay. All right. Apple TV Plus will be continuing at pace, though their service has always greenlit far fewer programs compared to its streaming competitors. I will say this about Apple TV Plus. I'm not really sure why they're in the streaming wars, but I noticed that the stuff they have fewer projects greenlit, but the stuff I've seen on there is quality. Like I said, I did like the Foundation series. I liked Chappie. That was that Tom Hanks robot road trip movie.
Yeah.
after the Earth gets hit by a solar flare, and it's like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. When the robot go on a road trip, it's not bad. It's pretty good actually. Um, I was actually happy they went for a solar flare rather it being a an environmental type thing. Because that
Right.
would be an easy choice to go. Okay, but with such stiff economic headwinds, 2023 likely portends the end of peak TV. The term was coined by FX chief John Landgraf at the dawn of the modern golden era for scripted television, especially hour-long dramas, but also half-hour dramedies. And while streamers are likely to still churn out reality TV and low-budget unscripted content, there will be much more budget scrutiny when it comes to big-ticket scripted programming. Will mark the peak of peak TV era, predicted Landgraf during a conference call with reporters at the semi-annual Television Critics Association press tour last summer. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
So does this mean a return to the variety show?
I hope not.
Donnie and Marie could come back, maybe. No, no. I'm just okay. According to the FX research, okay, I don't feel like reading all this. Okay, the saturated streaming market that led to subscriber losses or sluggish growth and is overwhelming consumers with too much content and too many services is also spurring a demand for a streaming bundle that offers consumers the kind of one-stop shopping that the antiquated cable bundle delivered. According to a recent survey from e-commerce data from Banco, 72% of U.S. subscription video on demand respondents said there are too many subscription services, while close to 80% said they want a single platform to manage all of their subscriptions. As if on cue, Warner Brothers Discovery revealed on December 6th that HBO Max would once again be available on Prime Video channels in the U.S. So you can buy your subscriptions through Prime. I guess people don't like buying the Roku player and going through all the different channels in there. They want to just go to Prime and stream all the content through there.
I'll be honest with you. I like what Zootopia is saying. Honestly, I think that would probably, going back to the Netflix model, have everybody licensed to Netflix. You subscribe to Netflix, you get everything that's in the package that Netflix licenses. I think, despite the fact that the industry is starting to see the necessity of this, of what we do with our streams, they don't want to give up their individual streams, and no company wants to admit that they're not making enough money on their own individual streaming service to be viable. I mean, hell, Disney isn't even making enough money as a company to be viable much longer. But that's beside the point. Paramount can't stand on its own with their streaming service. Most of them can't.
No.
They need to start joining together.
I don't really know why if they own Showtime, why they just don't combine the two services into one. Nickelodeon as well. I'm assuming a lot of Nickelodeon shows show up in Paramount Plus, but it's if HBO Max doesn't have Game of Thrones or DC, if Disney Plus doesn't have Marvel or Star Wars, if Paramount Plus doesn't have Star Trek, why would I subscribe to their services?
Well, and there's also the talk about when you have shows like that, right? And this is why you have the Netflix phenomenon, where you get 2 seasons of something, and no matter how good it's doing, they want to cancel it by the 3rd season. Why is that? Well, because it gets more expensive as you go. Why is it more expensive? Because the stars want more money. That's just reality. They try negotiating for more money, and they're like, well, we can't afford this. Screw it, we're done. We'll start a new show.
I mean, Jenny Ortega's blowing up. I mean, who knows? In a few years, she may be too expensive for Wednesday.
That is exactly it. And look, they've already got what's her name, Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? She's can't
on
be
there.
Cheap. She can't be cheap. She'll be wanting more next year and going forward. And all the stars are going to do that. And look, if you're a network television, right? Back in the day,
the Stranger Things stars are all starting to break off too. It's
exactly. So it's getting to the point where the networks used to have enough money to be able to handle something like that. But I think we're working on much finer margins when you're dealing with someone like a Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I suppose so, because they're not a traditional movie studio, right?
No, this push to create their own content is very, very new. And honestly, I think Netflix would do much better if instead of making their own films, because they've been hit and miss with making their own films, they do the we'll carry and distribute the film that you make in your studio, whomever, whether it's Tom Cruise with his Maverick, or it's I'm using that as an example. Obviously, there's they have their licenses and their agreements with movie companies. I'm just saying, or James Cameron and his movie studio that made Avatar. Like I said, that wasn't Disney that made that. Disney's pretty much just the distributing company for it.
Yeah, that's true. It's the same goes for the same goes for those Godzilla movies, which is why the Godzilla Universe series coming out is going to be on Apple TV.
But what does that do? That begins to decentralize the entertainment industry. And you start to see the death of Hollywood. Because all of these companies become separate and they don't necessarily have to be in California. But I think you're going to start seeing more and more companies leaving California anyway. We know Disney is. We know Disney is moving out of California, and they're moving their corporate offices to Florida. So
we'll see how that goes. But
they're already committed. They kind of don't have a choice in the matter anymore.
I suspect, as disturbing as this is, I'll figure if Iger can figure out a way to walk back Disney's stance on the whole bill, work with the governor. I don't know. I can see them. I can see. I don't know. And then DeSantis can come out and say, "Oh, it was the other guy." Not.
I'll tell you what.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
I highly recommend that you listen to. What's it called? Who is that new channel? Help me out, deleted scenes. Walt Disney. It's not that Park Place. It's he's on Valiant Renegade all the time. But Valiant Renegade's another one too. Valiant Renegade, WDW Pro. That's who it is. It's Valiant Renegade, WDW Pro. And Legal Mindset, who has guested on Valiant Renegade a number of times. His specific area of law is the regional things like Reedy Creek, and they're not getting that deal back again. They can recontract, and Reedy Creek will become a new. And they'll probably try to spin it like they got their status back again, but it won't be the same. It'll be just like every other independent group down there, like all the other parks.
Wildcat, is it on Amazon? Maybe it is.
I don't know. I have Amazon. I don't even watch it.
There's some good stuff on Amazon. The Jack Reacher series is very good.
We watched what is it, Back Range or
Open Range, yeah.
Whatever that was.
I'm watching the Jack Ryan series right now. They're on season 3 of that, the Tom Clancy one.
Yeah, Deleted Scenes got us on this Western show, and it's coming out with its second season. I can't even remember the name of the damn show.
It's not
Time Travel Western.
I think it is Outer Range. Yeah, Outer Range. Yes.
Outer Range. That's what it was.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of how these properties have been handled. I mean, apparently people, Zootopia is bringing up Star Trek and Game of Thrones. I think House of Dragon has been well received, so I'm assuming that's now the new Game of Thrones for people that like that show.
Yeah, but it is a prequel, so
it is,
I think there's a lot of fans that are sitting there going, well, this is great, but it can only go so far, because eventually it butts up against that shit.
Here's how it resolves. Everybody dies.
I mean, that really is ultimately how it does end up. That's true.
Game of Thrones, you're waiting to see who's going to get killed next. That was the point.
Right. Nobody is safe.
Outer Range, Open Range, Outer Range. Okay, well, whatever. It's an open range with an outer range.
I'm just glad that they're getting a second season. I really thought that was going to be one of those bizarre shows, and they're just, okay, well, that's it. It's done. They're like, no, what happens? Like, can you imagine if they'd done that after the first season of Lost? Well, they probably should have. It'd probably been better off that way.
Lost. That was the must-see TV. We don't have like the big it show right now, do we? I guess no. I guess we do. It's Yellowstone. I guess that's the one everybody
I
talks
know, and
about.
I
Yeah,
haven't
I
seen
need
it
to
yet.
watch
And
Yellowstone. But
everybody on YouTube is telling me to see it. My mom's telling me to see it, and it's like,
I'm telling you to
ah.
watch Tulsa King, though. Oh,
I do
it
want
had
to
one
see
of those
Tulsa King.
finales. I'm like, no, don't leave it there. No, I gotta wait. What a year. I'm also gonna say something else too. I
Huh.
think Perry Mason might finally be coming back this year. When did the first season of that air in 2019? Pandemic, no pandemic. You guys got to stop taking forever with these seasons. They should be one every year. They shouldn't be going on like 3 years later. You get a second, you get another season. Stranger Things took forever to get
I'm
get its fourth season. I know it's the pandemic. They blame it on that, but you have to crank
I'm a
these
little
seasons out.
confused. I thought that, I mean, Raymond Burr's dead, right?
They had a new actor playing him. He's a good actor.
Oh, so it's like a reboot
Yeah, it's a remake. To be
of
fair,
Perry
even before
Mason.
Raymond Burr played him, there were movies made in the 1930s about Perry Mason. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's true. Now that you mention it,
So, in
right?
fact,
I just didn't know that there was something else.
this show takes place in the 1930s, which is
Really?
interesting. Yes, it's Perry
I'd be
Mason starting
interested in
out.
that then.
You might get
Yeah.
a kick out of it. It's an interesting series. It's like a season-long murder mystery, and he doesn't start out as a lawyer in the beginning of the series. I guess he's a private investigator for a law firm,
Huh.
and it's interesting. The actor is really good. The actor was on The Americans. I don't know why I keep forgetting this guy's name. He was also in the Mister Rogers movie, but it's worth checking out. They originally wanted Robert Downey Jr. for the lead, but he was too busy with Marvel, so he got signed on as a producer. They originally thinking about him for Perry Mason originally, which would have been great. But to be fair, the actor they got is also really good, so
Cool.
I don't
Cool.
mind it. Yeah, actually, they should have Robert Downey Jr. Now that he's done. Maybe he could play like an antagonist on a season of Perry
Sure.
Mason. That might be interesting. All right, but yeah. So this is where we are with streaming. We all excited about streaming?
I will say what I always say. If there's a show you like, make sure you own the physical media.
It almost reminds me with streaming that old joke about 500 channels and nothing good on. That actually was a predictor of the future, right?
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
all these streaming services, and
Nothing good on.
I've had to suffer through a lot of shows that are not good that I don't talk about. Like Interview with the Vampire did not care for that. Good actors on it, but no, just no.
Did they make a TV series of that?
Yes, they did.
I'm glad I missed that.
It's very I'll be you know what I'll be polite. Okay.
Well, keep
If
in
you're of a
mind.
persuasion, you'll like it.
I
I'm
was
gonna
gonna
say.
say, let's keep in mind. I mean, if you know the original source material, it was pretty, loose with the gender roles to begin
They,
with. So
they make it pretty obvious on this new series. It's not like the Tom Cruise movie with Brad Pitt. Yeah. It's just
I
I don't
mean,
know.
it was a little bit more obvious in the book than it was in the movie too.
Actually, I
So.
will say one positive thing about the Interview with the Vampire series. They go into the reporter character more, and the reporter character is interesting.
Oh, that's
The
interesting.
interviewer, they go into him a bit more. He's actually an interesting character on the show. So it's I don't know. It's just I was never a huge Anne Rice fan to begin with, so it's not really my thing. But it's funny because the actor, I know the actor. I've seen other things. He reminds me of Elliot Gould, and like he's this hard. It's funny seeing this hard nosed reporter interviewing this guy vampire that can kill him any second if he wants to,
Yeah.
but he
Um,
doesn't care. You know.
do they bring Claudia into the story?
Yes, the girl. Yes.
Oh, I'm a little concerned how they handle that.
Well, they had Kirsten Dunst play her in the movie. In this, they bring her in. The actress they got is 18, but they portrayed her as younger, which is kind of weird because she's wanting to have relations with men and stuff. So
Which is okay. So they cast an 18-year-old girl to
yes,
play the role,
yes,
so they can do whatever they want to do.
yeah.
Okay,
It's just
that's still creepy. It's just creepy, but that is the character. It's a little bit more comfortable to deal with when it's a completely prose fiction and
yeah,
there is no actress
yeah,
and it's the character really is hundreds of years old. So regardless of what you know she looks like, you know she's an ancient adult.
Yeah, it's just
That's
Kirsten Dunst was actually the correct age, I think, when they cast her for that part. But I
but
think
they
for this,
also very much toned down
probably,
any
yeah,
improper elements
exactly,
there.
and probably for this series that they were going to go that route, they needed to cast someone who was at least 18, who could maybe at least look younger if they needed her to. But yeah, I think they made her a teenager rather than
Yeah, no,
like a young teenager. I think that's what they were going for rather than someone
that's
younger.
where being true to the source material means you should not be doing this
Yeah.
this particular medium for this story.
Apparently now they have a series about the Mayfair witches. That's the next one they're doing, which is another Anne Rice series. I think they're trying to start an Anne Rice universe on their thing. But AMC, is anybody watching these series though? Because it looks like they're bleeding money. So I just don't know. In
Well,
fact,
I didn't even know this thing existed.
I
Let alone
only
really
had a
watch it.
subscription to AMC Plus because I got a bargain on it. Prior last Black Friday or something, they had like a full year for $25.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, AMC Plus, that includes AMC, it includes Shudder, which I've always wanted to subscribe to Shudder, the horror streaming
Yeah,
service. I'm like, well,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
included. I'll get that with this and, watch Creep Show the series and but it wasn't enough to make me want to pay like $90 for like the year's worth. I'm not doing that. If they had another 25 deal, I might do that, but I'm not going up to what they probably wanted me to pay originally.
Yep.
All right, so I guess that wraps it up. Are you
I think it
excited for the
does.
future of streaming? Are you excited for this year in popular entertainment? It seems like everything seems like a thud right now.
No, yeah, I gotta say I'm not. I guess that's probably a good way to go into the year because I feel like if something good does come up, I can be happily surprised.
I hate to say this, and you'll probably yell at me, but the new Ant-Man trailer, it actually looked good.
A lot of people have said that. No, no, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that too,
Doesn't
but
mean it will be good, but I mean, the villain looks interesting. It
but
it
it
almost
looks
looks like an old one of how the Marvel movies used to be. That's what it looks like.
but it also looks like the CG is terrible once
Yes.
again.
Well, it's been I we have to get into that probably in a later stream, but there's those houses that do the CG, they're overtaxed right now. They're
Yeah.
having to do too much of it. They're miserable, and it's probably why it's not the finished project's not coming out.
No,
Finished
but you're
product's
right.
not coming out as well.
Yeah, we decided to hold off on that because we already had too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a reason that the CG has been so bad.
Wait a minute.
So
Hold the phone. Deleted scenes. You get Shutter through Amazon freebie as well. Oh, I see. You pay for Shutter through Amazon. Okay, I thought it was available on freebie, and I'm like, I can watch it for free. All right, so y'all have a good night. I don't know when the Oscar noms are going to be, but I promised deleted scenes he come on and talk about the Oscar noms when they happen. So I'll be curious. Oscars this year, huh?
well, there's a reason that you're having deleted scenes on to talk about it. Let's put it that way.
You don't want to be talking about it. I'm curious as to
I
what's
know
going to get
nothing.
nominated.
I know nothing, and honestly, when it comes to modern award shows, I couldn't care less.
I saw The Whale today, so that was a kind of a miserable experience, but I'm sure that'll get nominated for some things. But
Miserable in like a good way. It was a good movie.
I
Just
don't know.
doesn't-
Do you
it's
like
not a
Darren
good-
Aronofsky movies?
I have no
He
idea who
did
that is.
Mother. He did Requiem for a Dream. He did
Oh, yeah.
The
Okay.
Wrestler. The Wrestler was actually very good, even though it is an Aronofsky. I really enjoyed The Wrestler.
Okay. I know
Mickey Rourke,
exactly the
but,
kind of
yeah,
film you're talking
yeah.
about. So,
Black
they're-
Swan. He did Black
they,
Swan.
They
Yeah.
are good movies, but that
They're very dark and make you leave
it's
you
very,
depressed
very
after.
difficult to say that you liked them.
Yeah.
I get
They're
what
not
you're
something you
saying.
watch on repeat. It's like
Wow, I may have to check that out. Yeah,
you take your punch in the gut and you're done. Okay.
but see that is good art, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be artsy in that regard.
And it'll
Tell
probably
a-
help Brendan Fraser's career because he'll probably get an Oscar nom for
Tell
it.
a good, compelling story, and those are the ones that I would expect to see then get Oscars. But that doesn't seem to be how the Oscars work these days. I don't know what goes into deciding what wins awards anymore.
No, well, especially not after they did this 9 nominee thing. And I'm going to say this: with 9 movie nominees, you better be nominating Maverick for one of those. I'm not even joking right now.
Yeah, but
You don't have to give it. You don't have to give it the best picture.
I was
You
going to
have to
say,
at
but I
least give
can't
it a
see Hollywood
nomination.
giving it anything. But
You have
we'll
to give it
see.
at least one. The whole reason to have 9 nominations is to put a movie like Maverick in there to keep interest. That's why
Deleted
they did.
Scenes is good at guessing the winner. I will look forward to that then, because I'm hoping that you will not only guess the winner, but kind of give us some insight into your thinking behind the why.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that'll be an interesting show.
Yep, yep.
All right, y'all have a good night. What do we got going on this week? Nothing for Tuesday. I believe the lead scenes not the lead scenes. We're going to be on with Mr. Matchstick the following Tuesday to give. I got to start working on that. I
Yep.
might do one sentence pitches for these movies, though. I don't know. We'll see. You might go. I knowing you, you'll probably go into more detail about your recreating your idea for a phase 1 of the
Yeah.
upcoming DC cinematic
Yeah.
universe.
Yep.
I have
What I
my
would
idea.
do. Yeah.
I think I'm lacking one movie for my phase 1. I have to figure out because
Well, you got a week.
I know. I got to think about this.
But Wednesday, or is he back on Wednesday?
No, no
Birdman?
Birdman. This we'll be back in February. He's got some stuff going on. Like he was not feeling well. Plus, I think he had a family situation. He's a family situation going on. You'll keep him and his family in your prayers. They're dealing with some right now.
Yeah.
But it's not not necessarily my business to go into that on the air, though. But yeah.
So that brings us to well, there's no one that I know of is doing anything on Thursday right now.
No.
But Friday, that brings us back around to me. So last call, where our special guest will be Sir Torrin Clegane from the chat. He's been on many times before. We will be talking about a topic that might surprise a lot of you: the daytime dramas of the late '80s and early '90s, basically soap operas. I think many of you will be very surprised by how much those soap operas of that time period have influenced the entertainment you're enjoying right now.
Okay. Well, is there any way to watch those older soap operas? I wonder.
Good question.
I'm curious that they include those. I know Paramount Plus has a lot of the soaps. It's one of the reasons I have to keep subscribing to it for my family members.
I know that there was a cable channel for a long time that used to rerun old soap operas. And,
that'd be a hard thing to rerun, though, because they're a daily show anyway.
But what they would do is they would have like blocks where they do like a whole week's worth of soaps for like 5 hours, well 4 hours because it was cable, and then like they do like 4 or 5 hours of All My Children, then they do 4 or 5 hours of One Life to 4 or 5 hours of General Hospital. So you'd get in the course of a 12 to 18-hour day, you'd get a whole week's worth of that show.
Yeah. Okay.
And but let's face it, I also remember watching these things before there was they never reran these things. Like you said, they were daily shows.
Yeah.
And there was these things didn't come out on physical media or whatever, so the only way you could keep up with what had happened in the past was soap opera digests.
Yes, I remember that magazine.
You'd have to actually read the magazines to see, what the story is. Nowadays, that kind of information is available in those kinds of digest forms, the prose form. It's basically Wikipedia. You can find out the basic overall stories, and sometimes it's better to get it in a condensed synopsis rather than arduously long detailed. You'd be watching a soap for a year, but the story only progressed the equivalent of what should have taken a week. I remember my mother doing that. She'd go away from the show for a long time. She'd come back. They're still on this storyline?
Funny.
This hasn't been resolved yet?
Well, you got to pat it out.
No, they did.
So what's going on Saturday?
So Saturday brings us back around to Netter's Network, where we will be watching a Western classic. I consider it to be a Lee Marvin film, but simply because I'm still not fond of Jane, and that's Cat Ballou.
Okay. I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's a good one. You
Okay.
might want to, if you can, I'll be carrying it on Cosme to share with
Yeah, I'll
everyone.
let you. I'll let you know. Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Never
You
seen
might
it.
you might enjoy it. It's a good one. It's a Western comedy. I had to I didn't realize that not everyone knew that. So Al was like, "Oh, it's a comedy." Yeah, it's a comedy. Yeah.
And then that'll bring us around to Geeky Geezers next Sunday.
Geeky Geezers next Sunday. Who knows what we'll be talking about? Depends on what the week holds.
We need something eventful because I'm telling you, Disney needs. I want to find out what's going on behind the scenes at Disney. They're covering something up, and I want to know what it is. But anyway,
Well,
all right.
there's a lot of very reasoned speculation, but we don't know for sure. So we'll have
Apparently,
to see.
Pablo Hidalgo is giving interviews, so I'm kind of curious about all that. So,
Well, not so much interviews. He got involved in a Twitter thread that WDW Pro and Valiant Renegade were in.
mm-hmm.
So
All
they
right,
direct communication with him, which is, well, let's just say it's a mixed bag, and maybe
it's unique.
that's a generous way of putting it. So there you go.
All right. Well, y'all have a good week, and take care, and have a good day off if you have tomorrow off,
Yep.
Martin Luther King Day. So, all right.
Take care.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.